We got nothing better to do than watch TV and have a couple of brews.
Don't want to talk about anything else.
We don't want to know.
We're dedicated
To our favorite shows.
Oh, my circuits!
Everybody loves Hypnotoad.
Scary dog!
Pearson at Blurnsville.
Futurama.
Good evening. You are listening to a Radulich Broadcasting Premier Podcast TV party tonight. I'm your host, the mandated reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified, Mr. Mark Radulich. And tonight, one last time around, our favorite show is Lucifer. Formerly brought to you by Fox, now formerly brought to you by Netflix. We are discussing Season 6 tonight. And I am joined by the people who have been with me on this journey all along. First, fresh off the road from her final convention of 2020 that took place in 2021, Alexis Hejna. How do you do, madam?
Happy to be back.
Good to have you.
Hope you don't mind. I will be eating a little bit of dinner while we're talking.
Make sure the camera's on the dinner when you're doing it, and like close-ups and stuff. There we go.
It's the unstuffed peppers. I know you like this. You've asked me to send it to you before.
Absolutely. We and I know what your I already know what your reaction is going to be when I say this, so it's fine. I'm prepared. I'm prepared for the Alexis brand of humor. But I was not wearing a shirt earlier, as I am wont to do about my house, being a man and all. And I go into my bedroom and I'm like, stupid video podcast, got to put a shirt on now. And my wife goes, why don't you just go shirtless? You could probably get a whole new audience. Like, just tweet at the Bears on Twitter directly. And I was like, maybe I could be like eating soup while shirtless on the thing while discussing Lucifer. Just get a whole. And joining us tonight, also from our Canadian office, both representatives, we have Andrew Graham. How do you do, sir?
Doing good, Mark. How you doing?
And that disembodied head you see in the corner on the video is David Wright. How are you, sir?
I'm good, thanks. I would like to welcome everyone to our shared hell here. I mean, there's an awful lot of you out there, so I'd say let's get everyone organized into groups. So, murderers over there, rapists up against the wall.
Thank you, Rowan Atkinson.
Yeah, atheists. I bet you're feeling a bunch of twits right now. Christians, sorry, the Jews were right.
People who think the schedule is going to stay in one place. Sorry, Mark.
My wife and I.
There are no bathrooms. It's eternity without relief.
Yes. The Gambit movie over there.
Mark that square in your bingo card, everybody. I've I have learned to live with the ever-evolving schedule. It doesn't upset me like it used to. I'm doing a lot of yoga, doing a lot of Zen. Anyway,
what upsets him now is forgetting what Beanie Babies are.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the schedule has taught you about impermanence, which is an important Buddhist concept.
Be like water. All right. So
that's Taoism, but moving on.
I don't care. As my son
contrary to popular belief, Bruce Lee did not invent that. That was Lao Tzu who did it like 20,000 years before.
So Loki. Let's get into Lucifer. When we last left Lucifer, he was God. Chloe had been killed and was resurrected like you do. He won a war for the throne of God, and it was okay. Like, what next? And I'm just going to throw this out there for consumption, for thought. I really wish the show had just ended there. Like, he became God. I mean, I like the way that's. I'll give this away now. Why not? I've already talked about it on Twitter. I like the way season 6 ends. I think the final episode is very strong, and I liked how everyone resolved their various threads and angles. But getting there was a bit of a journey, and for that sake, I'm glad we had the one season to get there. But I really feel like the show, Andrew, overstayed its welcome one season too long. I kind of wish we had bailed out at the end of season 5B. What do you think?
I think I like most of the arc that they laid out over the course of season 6. I think I agree, and we'll get into this a little bit more. There is probably a little bit of fat that they put on this one. They probably could have done it in probably 1 to 2 episodes less than it ended up being, but having kind of a 10 episode arc kind of dedicated to resolving the whole storyline and all the storylines, basically, I thought was quite good. So I'm really happy with the way we're going to do it more, but I think I'm really happy with the way they ended it. That ending a fairly long-running TV show is always a challenge. Looking at you, How I Met Your Mother, and these guys did it pretty well.
Boy, you want to talk about a show that does not stick the landing.
Game
God,
of
no.
Thrones, Dexter, How I Met Your Mother, Sabrina.
Yeah, a bit of a trend. What about you, Dave? Stayed too long or just right? Or, was somebody sleeping in your bed? We're doing the three bears. What do you think?
I'm kind of close to Andrew with that. Is I think having it end at the end of season 5, proper with Lucifer becoming God. Like Lucifer's character, it's still like you don't really see him as being God at that point. Like his reasons tend to be rather self-centered as opposed to selfless, which is something that you would expect in, for God to have. So certainly diving into that a bit, I think they did need to spend a bit of time exploring that. It was good grist for the mill. I did find it interesting how there were only like 2 murder mysteries in the entire season. Like the writers have officially given up on the procedural.
I have thoughts.
Yes. Yeah. It was just, if you like celestial drama, oh boy, this is the season for you.
Yeah. If you like a cop show where they solve mysteries, consider watching Law and Order. Alexis.
For bonus, they mentioned 5 times.
Yes. Final thoughts here on the subject matter, and then we'll get into the first episode.
It's both yes and no for me, because on one hand, we really got some great character development and some great wrap-ups for so many of the characters. It's not one of the things that I've complained about a lot on various shows we reviewed, is that when they get to the finale, the creators tend to be, oh, yeah, that's right, we probably should wrap up all these other characters. I'll forget it. We don't have to pay attention to them. And we're all sitting there going, you spent so long developing all these other characters, but now we're not going to get them wrapped up. And I love that they did that. But on the other hand, we had to suffer through 9 episodes with arguably the most annoying character in the history of mankind, Rory.
I have thoughts.
I said this to you. Yeah, I'm sorry. I said this to you earlier, Mark, but I stand by it. She's fan fiction. You get this cool punk rock bisexual with pink stripes in her hair, and she's the devil's daughter, and she's got the red wings that act as weapons. And I'm
original character, do not steal.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sitting here going, okay, who inserted their fan fiction into season 6?
So I didn't know what you meant by fan fiction, but now that you've explained it a little bit, I kind of get it. And I think the better, I won't say better, I think a more accurate word for this would be Poochie. What is Poochie doing right now? Oh, you don't think
she returned to her own timeline.
Literally.
We should just get to it, because I definitely have thoughts too.
All right, let's do it. Episode 1, Nothing Ever Changes Around Here, and how. And this was actually directed by Kevin Alejandro, who plays What's His Nuts. What's His Nuts? Come on, help me.
Daniel.
Detective Douche.
That's the one.
Detective Douche, yeah.
All right, so Lucifer and Chloe become murder witnesses of Jared Holbrook, who was mysteriously murdered during the last performance of Magnar the Magician, Jared's mentor, who was going to pass on his mental. LAPD, Ella, and Dan's replacement, Carol, who has a crush on Ella, arrived to investigate the scene. Just as Lucifer and Chloe's investigation was about to get concluded, Magnar's son, Alan, is revealed to be the killer. He holds Chloe at knife point and takes her to a secret passage. Chloe knocks him out with her super strength she got from Amenadiel's necklace piece. Meanwhile, in the Batcave, Eve and Maze prepare to go to hell. However, after an argument between the two, Maze reveals she doesn't want to return, with Eve supporting her decision, and the two get engaged like you do. In hell, a mysterious female angel approaches Michael, asking how to kill Lucifer. However, she is approached by a demon nurse who informs her that Dan was the only human that had almost killed Lucifer.
Now, okay, am I wrong? I saw that earlier, but I think that actually happens in the next episode. I think who wrote the Wikipedia got confused.
It's entirely possible.
First episode ends with teasing her boots on the throne. Second episode is she talks to.
And now that you mention it, that's
demon.
correct. Here's what I'll say about this. Strong start for me in that, as per usual, Lucifer doesn't want to do what he said he was going to do, and he's putting it off, and he's struggling, and he's having self-doubt, all the things we love about Lucifer in this show. But more than that, the thing that hooked me initially, Alexis, was that this was two goofy characters solving murders like you do. And I was really afraid, and eventually they do just utterly get away from that. But at least we started there. So good start so far. What did you think?
Did enjoy it. The Magician's Club was a really cool setting. I enjoyed that. I like the idea that Chloe cannot turn off her detective skills, that she's there. She is officially resigned from the LAPD, and multiple times she has to be reminded, you cannot be part of this investigation.
Yes.
And it's a really good build to her character that she just is unable to turn off that part of herself. You know, that's who she is and what she does. And she's so freaking good at it. And I do like, we get the new character, Carol, who doesn't really stay around. I mean, we see he's last to the end of the season, but he's not as big of a presence. The show was wise not to really throw him in and like hardball at the end of the season. But he's not a bad guy, and I was so worried that he was going to be, you know, it's like, you resigned. You're stepping on my toes. You need to back off. No, he doesn't do that. He admits, he reprimands her, but then he goes, but I could really use your input on this. So you want to talk to me as a, you know, as a private citizen and let me pick your brain. We can do that. He's basically like, you know, he's not being a dick about height. Cleo's cameo, ladies and gentlemen.
I really like the Carol character. I'm going to let you finish your point, but I wanted to interject here and then go to Andrew. That, you know, Robert and Andrew, you've already heard the show. We were talking about how male characters are written in Hollywood, and it's frustrating because, you know, they tend to stick to a handful of tropes, and you don't really get decent written male characters. And Carol might be one of the best male characters I've seen written that's relatably human in quite some time. Like, he's just a decent dude, just, you know, struggling with all the things we all struggle with in life, but he isn't so far to one side to make him like a caricature of being a man. Did you want to add anything else, Alexis?
I can't remember. Did we see? Yeah, we did see Dan in hell in this episode, right?
Yeah, he's playing ping pong, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Again, I think that's kind of a cool idea that, you know, he's in hell, but Lucifer has specifically said, look, I've instructed my demons. They're not to torture you. So he's not in hell. He's in his own purgatory. But Lucifer says, I can't get you out. Yeah. And there's a really great concept, the argument of free will and what Lucifer can and cannot do as the Lord of Hell. And again, I like that. The idea that you have to get yourself out. You can't just get on the good side of angels or whatever, and they can just snap their fingers and send you to heaven.
Yep. Andrew, we're talking about Carol. We talked about various issues with this episode. What'd you think?
I'd say really strong start to the season. I mean, definitely changes, but also kind of maintains a lot of the status quo of the series. I did like kind of the setup with the Magic Club being in there, and this apparently being one of Lucifer's favorite places because it's somewhere, as somebody who cannot lie, gets to see deception, and everyone's kind of in on the gag.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Chloe trying to figure everything out as they go. But it's kind of an interesting one. I was probably a little bit worried that we were going to get into still Mystery of the Week with Chloe not being a detective and her not, pardon me, interfering with investigations the entire time. And they kind of figured out a way to work around that. So, you know, that was good. I mean, the Mystery of the Week was the Mystery of the Week. It was a good introduction for Carol to kind of see his dynamic with everybody around there. You know, the conversation between Mace and Eve was good, and Linda just proving that she is the greatest therapist in all creation.
Yep. David, rounding out episode 1 here, what'd you think?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what's been said. Yeah, I was concerned that we would have all these contrivances for Chloe still being a detective after quitting. You know, it's like, I don't know if any of you have watched Castle, but it's like that for a few seasons where, you know, the end of the previous season, Castle's kicked off the consulting detective thing, and now there are all these contrived reasons for why he keeps on showing up during every case before they switch it back to the status quo, where I'm just like, just have him come back at the beginning of the next season. It's a procedural cop show. I'm not expecting, you know, The Wire here.
And mark your centers for everyone.
Yeah. Huh. Now you know what it feels like, Mark.
Feels great. Yeah. Do it again.
The Wire.
Oh, Andrew, that reminds me. You asked me to put a drop in for The Wire, and I'm really struggling with which one. There's so many good ones. I've spent an entire hour where I was at the time, and just going through YouTube clips trying to find like a really good one. Anyway, we'll discuss it. We'll have a meeting.
Maybe
Anyway.
you come for the king you dare not miss, or what's the whatever the.
Yeah, you come for the king you best not miss. That's high on my list. All right.
So Carol thought he was, it's nice when people are written like they're people.
Yes.
Like actual rational, decent, flawed, but doing their best people. And yeah, it makes sense. Like, I'm sure there are rules for having civilians involved with police investigations, so he has to keep that barrier up. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, you're a brilliant detective. I'd be a fool not to pick your brain about this case. The only one thing that I think we haven't talked about much is Eve and Maze.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like the sort of going back on Maze wanting to be Queen of Hell. I thought that was kind of a nice, oh, good, we don't have to do that. And we kind of got Maze's main struggles out of the way. It was like, oh, great, Maze is upset about something else now.
What's Maze mad about this week?
Yeah, it's like, I have a soul, yay! And then, but that means I can go to hell if I die. It's like, but like, you know that the system works like just a general thing is like, once all the mortals know that God is real, heaven and hell exist, why are we afraid of death all of a sudden still? Yeah. It's like, it's like Chloe's been to heaven. It's like, this isn't scary anymore. As we like the spoiler for when we get to the end of the show, it's like, I'm going to leave you. And it's like, dude, like, I'm an angel. I can just fly up and see you anytime. Like,
right. I like the Maze character, and I think her arc this season is worthy of good storytelling. But I did struggle with her over the course of 6 seasons. She was very frustratingly written.
They were wise to cool her off for this season.
For sure.
We just really needed Constantine to show up and fix whatever problem they alluded to in that cameo.
No more crossovers.
Seriously, though, anyone else a little upset that we didn't get our Constantine cameo at all in this series?
I was looking forward to that.
I'm going to go ahead and be the asshole on this podcast. I know, shock to everyone, especially Alexis. But no! I'm fine with it! Stay in your own fucking shows!
Hey, as long as Ezra Miller didn't show up as the fucking Flash, I think we're fine.
Agreed.
I think we're all very grateful that you didn't give any career advice to Kevin Feige.
No, that like one thing where it was reasonable is fine. Every other thing on Earth, why don't you just have Luke Skywalker in there and he could be battling gods with his green lightsaber? Ugh. Anyway,
and Star Wars fans would still think that underpowered him.
Episode 2. Buckets of baggage. While investigating the murder of a drag queen, Ella and Carol develop an attraction for each other. But after her experience with Pete, Ella has trust issues like you would.
Yeah, what is the line Lucifer says? You have Pete TSD.
Hey, hang on. God damn it now. There it is.
Maze is like, torturing people is my job. Stay in your lane.
Together with Chloe, she steals Carol's personnel file and discovers a 1-year unexplained absence from the police. To find out more, she and Lucifer, who is still postponing him becoming God, break into Carol's home and learn that he is a recovering alcoholic. Ella confesses her investigations to Carol, and they go on a date together like you would. Meanwhile, Dan is approached by the unknown female angel who offers to fly him back to Earth if he tells her how he almost killed Lucifer. Ella then sees a frog falling from the sky and lands on her car after her date with Carol. Can I tell you, the Ella thinking the world is coming to an end and their allusion to plagues and whatnot was for me one of the more fun things about this season. Like, I wasn't sure how they were going to pay it off, and when they finally did pay it off, I was fine with the explanation. But that I got a kick out of, David. I really enjoyed. Like, when the one frog fell, I'm like, ooh, where is this going? I kept waiting for Locust to show up. Other than that, I think Ella and what's his Carol. Ella and Carol, I thought, were a cute couple, and I was glad that they got to the end of the issue with them really quickly, and they were able to move on. And what goes on with Ella for the rest of this season is some really, like, when she finally discovers that they all been lying to her, which we'll get to, is some of the best stuff of this season, and I just love the Ella character. Anyway, your thoughts on episode 2?
I guess am I the one starting? You didn't designate.
Yes, David.
Okay.
I'm starting with a different person every round, so everyone gets an opportunity.
Yeah. Okay. Episode 2. Like getting the Ella Carol thing sorted out. Like, one thing I gotta like about this season is, because it is the last season, they just get to the point.
Yeah.
no season long. Will they? Won't they? Okay, they finally figured out the end. It's like, okay, we're dealing with this issue. Okay, we got through it. Ella's willing to date Carol now. Her God board secretly hidden away in the.
Waiting for her to turn into Charlie, I think it is, from Always Sunny in Philadelphia. That meme.
Yeah, I was just so oh, she better be putting string and pins by the end of this, but we didn't get that. Though I did as it goes through, there's little funny notes about more socks going missing and stuff like that. Someone had a lot of fun with that.
Yeah.
So that was a good bit there. Yeah.
Ask a quick question. Was that the first appearance of that board, or was that something that they just dropped in this season? Because I can't remember it beforehand.
I don't think she had the board itself.
That kind of threw me for a loop. I kind of wish they had sprinkled in a little bit more of Ella wondering what's going on. And then all of a sudden she's got a board and it actually says actual devil on it. I'm like, okay, Ella, we know that you've been around Lucifer and everything all this time, but why are you just now putting the dots together?
They didn't allude to this in season 5B or A that she was starting to suspect funny business. I
don't think so.
Okay,
not directly. She was having a crisis of faith regarding to the whole PTSD, and she meets God, and he gives her the best hug, and comforts her. But you are the brightest light. I can see you from heaven, sort of thing. So I think that might have sort of flipped the switch. That okay, there's something divine here. And then she's talking with Amenadiel at the beginning of the season about how I'm still praying to God, but I don't feel like there's anyone on the other side of the line. And,
his dramatic reaction to that of he knows why no one's
because there is no one there.
It's wonderful weather we're having. That's
but I do appreciate that Lucifer's motivations now are am I really worthy to be God? How can I be a better God than my father? And him trying to work through those issues before ascending the throne. I need to learn how to love everyone and be there for everyone.
Very much like a King Arthur thing, Andrew. I have just been ascended into this role, and I don't know if it's for me, and I don't know if I'm worthy of it, and there's so much self-doubt. But also, is there any other sort of meditation? Is there any other way to lead than the way that was led before? You know what I mean? And I thought that was all very interesting aspects of the season.
Definitely, and I think we saw a change in the way that Lucifer kind of approached things, because I think when you were looking at him and he does kind of the classic Lucifer trope of goes to Linda, gets advice, takes the wrong lesson from it, and then enthusiastically tries to put that lesson into action.
Yeah.
But in previous seasons, that was very much about solely benefiting him and trying to address whatever need he or whatever want he had at the time. Now he's coming into this role. He thinks he's going to be God. And now he's realizing that these are things that I need to do to improve myself to make sure that I am effective when I become God. So
yeah, I mean, this is what he's wanted the whole time. This whole thing got started when he, tried to take over heaven. He led a rebellion, and now he's won, basically. Not in the way he had anticipated at the time, but he now is God, and now instead of focusing so much on getting to be God, now he's like, oh wait, I actually am God. Well, geez, now what do I do? I hadn't thought about that.
Any other thoughts on episode 2, Andrew?
Really enjoyed this one. I think everything between Ella and Carol worked really well. Awesome. Also, great Super Cop reference.
The cop that
you want to watch
stopped.
Super Cop or Bad Boys 2?
Which one do you want to watch first?
Exactly. There we go. A little hot fuzz in there. Everything worked really well. I actually kind of I got some extra information on the case of the week from my wife. The primary character that we're dealing with, one of the drag queens who gets to do the big musical number with Lucifer, was actually on an episode, or actually on a season of apparently RuPaul's Drag Race, and apparently the arc of that character was very similar to what that person went through on this show.
The Emmy Award-winning RuPaul's Drag Race.
Yes, it
according
is.
to this, Bob the drag queen who appeared as Busty won season 8 of Drag Race. So. Good for them.
And that was one of the more fun musical numbers we've had on this show, and that's saying something.
Well, they were going to pass up an opportunity to have Tom Ellis sing.
Again.
They did a little less of that this season. I think we only got a couple of really good piano numbers, but we'll talk about the one later that I do have issue with. But
I mean, they kind of
overall,
loaded
really good
all the
second
musicals into one episode last season, so
That's
you know.
true. Maybe they were saying, okay, I think we've had enough musicals now. Thank you.
I don't think Tom Ellis has a
Tone it
bad
back.
voice, but they really do need they do need to like selectively pick his music because like, he can't just sing everything. And some of this stuff sounded a little pitchy, Alexis. But tell me about your thoughts on episode 2.
Didn't really have a lot of complaints about it. Again, I really did enjoy the music number between Busty and Lucifer. That was really well done. I always love. Again, I love seeing Tom Ellis get to show off his singing talents.
So I do have
I've
one
got dogs
complaint
next to
here.
me.
Yeah. You're doing a show where you have like a musical devil, and never once does he play a fiddle.
Didn't you bring that up in the last season's review?
I'm not sure. I can't remember all my jokes, but if so, I did good there.
I mean, look, what with the Radulich and Broadcasting Network without running gags? Any other thoughts on episode?
Again, I'm really glad that we have the thing with Carol and Ella, and the fact that Ella actually admits to Carol what she did, that she investigated him. He confesses about being in rehab for the year. Not that unheard of for detectives who spend that much time in Vice. You know, so very believable what he's going through. And that he doesn't get all high and mighty against Ella. He's just like, you broke into my apartment. You looked at my private chest. Blah, blah. No, he understands. He gets her trust issues, and he's willing to work with her on it. And I really like how they developed him.
Yeah, they didn't have that hackneyed Hollywood scene of him having to walk solemnly in the rain, you know, as he thinks about the betrayal. But then he wakes up the next morning and he's over it. Like, it was just like they wrote him like an adult. It was nice. Episode 3. Yabba Dabba Do Me. That's the first time I'm reading that. Hey now. Lucifer decides to help people he hates in order to become God. Oh, this is a great episode. He then finds Jimmy Barnes, the murderer from the pilot, in hell. Lucifer and Chloe leave for hell together, and Dan and the angel arrive, and the angel tells him that he is a ghost and no human can see him, and he can't touch anything. Lucifer and Chloe find Jimmy's hell loop. Lucifer and Chloe find out Jimmy's mother left him in childhood, and Lucifer realizes the pain behind Jimmy's mistakes. Maze pretends to be a criminal to help Amenadiel succeed in his training as a police officer with his FTO, Sonia Harris. When Lucifer comes back to Earth, Dan warns him to go away, but the angel pins Lucifer to the wall, and she tells him she is his daughter. I love this episode, especially because it gets paid off. This idea of hell needs a healer, not a torturer, is paid off later in the best way possible. Also, this was Alexis. This was a really fun. They're not afraid to do goofy shit with this show, and having an partially animated episode and playing with those tropes, and doing sort of the Warner Brothers type, Tex Avery kind of humor with it was all very fun. It deals with some very serious things, and it certainly has some sad and serious episodes to it, but then there's stuff like this to counterbalance, and that's sort of the strength of the writing of the show, I think.
Absolutely, and I knew you were going to go to me for the animated part. They establish later on in the episode that Jimmy's his comfort as a child was animation. In fact, I believe it was Wacky Races was what he was watching. So they tried to emulate this animated world that Lucifer and Chloe find themselves in on a very classic Hanna-Barbera style, which was fun. We get some great homages with the slapstick humor, which is a lot of fun. I like the little detail that Lucifer's animated self, his hair is sticking out a little bit to look like devil horns. That was a nice touch. This does bring up one more thing. Again, the whole thing with Rory that pisses me off so much starts with her, with right here, that she brings Dan out of hell, but he's a ghost, and he still not only can he not ascend to heaven yet, but he is stuck in a world where only celestial beings can see him or hear him. And Rory never gets reprimanded for this. I mean, call me crazy, but I think being stuck in a world where you can't comfort the ones you love or talk to anyone else is a bigger torture than just waiting around in hell.
Well, I just say, take me back to hell. It's better than this.
He says that multiple times. And yeah, Rory never gets reprimanded for this. There's multiple times where, Dan finds out who she is and everything. And he's like, and he never says like, oh, I'm sorry. You mean that bitch who screwed me over and made me a ghost? I don't care if she's Lucifer's daughter. That is so horrible what she did. And it just pissed me off that nothing ever comes of it for her.
I don't disagree with you in the sense that someone should have addressed it with her, like, hey, this is not appropriate behavior. Considering how they use it to bring Dan along on his arc, David, and how it's resolved at the end of the season, I think it was like, we'll take the hit on this one and just kind of leave it alone, because we're going to do so much with it in Dan's character, and it's going to pay off so well that it kind of makes the whole thing okay. At least that's what I think. What do you think?
Well, in regards to Dan being a ghost and not being able to touch everything, every time they mention that, I'm like, why does he fall through the floor? I'm sorry, I have to be that guy, but I know magic
space for all eternity.
Yeah, it's like for some reason the bottom of your feet seem to work. Like, I mean, I know it's magic.
There has to be a limit, otherwise, it's going to just repeatedly fall through the earth.
Yeah, I mean, like this is the doorway to a lot of deep, crazy questions that do not belong in this podcast. And yeah, we have gods and demons and angels and all that. Like, is this really what you want to get worked up on? But it was just there, that one little nagging thing in the back of my mind. But
I believe it was our Lord and Savior Saint Hawkeye who said, there's a bunch of flying robots around, and I've got a bow and arrow. None of this makes any sense.
Yes. Yeah. But anyway, taking my Mr. Wizard hat off now that I've checked that box. Like I do like how it sets up that to kind of get into a bit spoilers for later. Like the one thing that he actually needs to do to deal with his guilt is the one thing that he's the most afraid of doing whilst being a ghost, which is seeing Trixie.
Yeah, and
dealing with that. That was a good payoff in the end, and an arc for his character. I think most of my comments regarding Rory, I think I might say for the next episode.
Yeah, we need to start talking about Rory, but not. I want a more. This is an important episode, Andrew, in that this is the thing that gets Lucifer on the path to his own kind of personal redemption and finding himself and finding the worthiness and the mission. This is the beginning of him getting the answers to all the questions by the end of the series.
Yeah, a lot of setup in this episode.
This is really important stuff here, handled in the most goofiest way possible, Andrew.
It did, and it did that really fine. I'm going to call it the James Gunn trick of doing really, really kind of light, goofy, airy stuff, and then when it wants to hit you in the gut, it does.
Sure.
Because when you go through kind of the setup of, this is really goofy, and Lucifer's chin looks like a butt. We'll talk about its character design later. It's all worth a laugh and everything like that. But as it continues to drill down, it's like, this is dealing with, real trauma. And this is somebody who suffered in their life and then caused other people to suffer. But when you get to that scene of him reliving the moment his mother walks away and walks out on him, and you just see his pain and you see everybody else, and then you see, and this is going to get into
services coming to pick him up. That was haunting. The kid screaming, "I have to stay here or my mom won't find me."
Yeah. And when you see that affecting Lucifer, when you go to what his psychology is and how he approaches things, and I'm going to get to that a lot more once we talk about kind of the main arc for the rest of the season. But when you see all those kind of bits of, I think, genuine, well thought out character interaction, that scene really hits. I mean, this is, I'm not going to lie, this is a really strong episode.
Agreed. All right, episode number 4, Pin the Tail on the Daddy. These are some wonderful names. Refusing to accept that the angel is his daughter, Lucifer.
We'll get into that.
Yep. Lucifer dismisses her and she leaves in anger. He then goes on a mission to find all the women from his past he had sex with, like he's fucking Wilt Chamberlain over here. But none claim the child to be theirs. Meanwhile, Dan fails to get Ella to see him, but he succeeds in getting Amenadiel and Maze to see him. Lucifer finds a rabbi named Esther, whose daughter is Mira, disappeared 5 years previously. Lucifer suspects that Mira is the angel. However, they find out that Mira was kept hostage at a camp, but she escaped to her biological father, and it is revealed that Mira isn't the angel. Lucifer is relieved after this, but is then worried that the angel is his actual daughter. The angel then finds Chloe and hugs her happily, and the angel calls Chloe her mother. Yeah, this episode is it's whatever. I think the only thing I really had to say about this was so this side quest, this thing, with Mira, I really wasn't into. I mean, it was fine, I guess, like him and Chloe going on this mission and them saving the day and saving all of these girls and whatnot. And there's definitely some funny interactions with Lucifer and some of the women that he's been with, but it definitely felt like filler, it just felt like, we got to get to 10 episodes and, we're really drawing out his dealing with his daughter, and that was one thing I did want to touch on. It's like, Lucifer has come so far from where we found him in season 1, and yet he still sometimes just makes these really rash and stupid decisions, especially when it comes to interacting with other people. And so there's this girl who says, "I'm your daughter," and everything else, and we're living in a world of living gods, and the possibility that he might have a daughter who time traveled, like he won't accept it. It's like, come on, man. I think sometimes they write Lucifer a little too stupid for everything else that we've established about this character, Andrew. I don't remember what order I'm doing this in anymore. I'm just calling out people at random now. So I do feel like sometimes they have to kind of Homer Lucifer down in order to create conflict. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I don't know if they quite Homer him. I think they definitely revert him a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
They take him back to some of his previous, behaviors and things like that, where he does go into this very impulsive mode and
Mm-hmm.
things like that. And I think they still set it up where he's now trying to do it with a little bit better intentions. But I think you're right on that count. I mean, in terms of the episode, yeah, it's definitely filler. I'd kind of call it well done filler because it's kinetic and you move around a little bit. You don't feel like you're staying in place.
No.
So, but yeah, it's a filler episode, but well executed filler.
Anything else about the episode you want to talk about?
I'm trying to think on that one. I guess we get into the fun of. I'm going to have one gripe for the remainder of this season, with a few exceptions. The Dan as ghost and comedy of errors thing does not last very long.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly with I don't know why it didn't work with the Amenadiel episodes as much. May's ignoring him, and then I heard you the whole time was pretty funny though.
Oh yeah, the amount of shit these characters give each other at any given time is one of the big draws for me. Alexis, your thoughts on this episode?
Tell me I'm not the only one who laughed at the CSI Miami joke.
I missed that one.
He's down in Miami and he puts the glasses on, delivers the punchline, you actually hear the start of "Won't Get Fooled Again."
Oh, I totally missed that, but that is brilliant.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my
funny.
God, I love that. Ow! Stop scratching me, dog. No, I wouldn't call it a filler episode. I call it a connect the dots episode. This is what needed to happen in this episode wasn't a lot of action or anything. It was simply set up for the next. It's like, okay, we have something laid here. We need the characters to get from point A to point B. So that's kind of what this was. And yeah, it was a little boring. It was great to see Chloe and Lucifer kicking ass at the farm, though.
Yeah.
And I also I will admit, I do really like the story arc with Chloe getting addicted to the power from Amenadiel's necklace. The idea that she's now got this super strength that she really doesn't want to let it go. So
yeah, I actually, now that you bring it up, I'm remembering it. I actually really like that about it too. Given all the things that have happened to her over the course of the previous 5 seasons, her feeling, her having this physical power in addition to her own talents and whatnot. Yeah, I could absolutely buy that. And I think the actress does a really good job of sort of, portraying somebody who, when they suddenly are bestowed all of this strength and power and not wanting to give it up, and how it might change your mentality almost. You made the joke about the Ring of Doom and Precious and all of that. I mean, it can be a real thing when you suddenly have something that makes you, more powerful than you were before, and you're loath to give it up. What else did you want to add, Dave?
Yeah, I'd also add that as for Amenadiel's necklace, this is like a celestial item, not meant for the use of mortals. So yeah, for Amenadiel, probably it's no biggie, but yeah, you just don't know what effects it would have on a mortal human. So that could also be messing with Chloe a bit. But I do kind of like how Lucifer has progressed as a character, but at the same time he's like his root issues are his daddy issues. And now he's at the point where it's like, I'm becoming my dad sort of thing. Yep. So it's like him struggling with it from that perspective. So at least it's not the same thing over and over. It's a different facet of that thing that he has not yet dealt with. So I do like how he does progress along. But that all being said, this episode could have been like completely cut from this show with just 4 words. I'm from the future.
Hey guys, I'll be right back. Cleo's pawing at the door. I'm going to go let her out before she destroys my carpet. Un momento.
Episode 5.
Can I add one more thing on real quick?
Yeah, please.
I'd say on the one hand, I mean, it definitely establishes that, the power of Amenadiel's necklace from a point of view of it being celestial and it being that power is addicting. You're also putting that you're giving that to a character who on some level is trying to redefine themselves right now. She's no longer a detective. She no longer has that position of authority anymore. And she's not quite sure what she's going to do if and when she gets to heaven. So she's kind of stuck in the middle waiting for Lucifer to ascend. So something like that is something to kind of fill the gap in the meantime.
Absolutely. The other thing about this, and this leads into the next episode, is so when you meet who will know to become Rory, this almost felt like season 3 with Kane. Like, oh fuck, we got another villain here, a season-long villain who's trying to kill Lucifer or take over heaven or start a taco stand or whatever the mission objective is. When I saw the trailer, I was like, oh great, another evil angel from Lucifer's past has come to mess with him. Like we've done this. So I was quite happy in the end that Rory didn't turn into like a reoccurring villain. But and that's what I was afraid of. But even so, we still don't start off on the world's greatest footwear because she's so angsty and she's so mad at Lucifer and she leaps to conclusions. Wonder where she gets that from. Well, what the problem with Rory is, right? She's like this character.
It was all me, James. It's always been me, the author of all your pain.
It's like the same beat over and over and over again with Lucifer. Everything you've ever done ruined my life until the very end when she finally figures out, hey, wait a minute.
I think those of us who have seen Deadpool and Deadpool 2 have officially seen the extent of this girl's acting ability.
Oh, dear. I'm going to disagree with that one.
Okay.
All right. So I'm just going to have it out regarding Rory right now. I actually really like this character. I think in terms of a device for the show to come in to really trigger Lucifer in terms of, like you said, his daddy issues, his abandonment issues, things like that. I think she was really effective. I think Brianna Hildebrand did a really good job. It took me about an episode to say she really reminds me of Negasonic Teenage Warhead, and then I looked up and it's like, yep, Negasonic Teenage Warhead.
Hey, it's her with hair.
I will actually give him credit that she actually even kind of looks like Lucifer's daughter. Like she has a bit of the same facial structure as Tom.
Actually,
Ellis.
the eyes was what give it away. Because
physically wise, I will admit she looks like a perfect blend of Tom Ellis and Lauren German.
Yeah, my only real issue is she just doesn't. She travels from the future and then she's surprised when her dad, who doesn't know that he's her dad because she hasn't been born yet, and she gets all upset about that. Like, no, duh.
Don't get me wrong, Andrew.
But she doesn't know where she lands either. And I mean, I think, again, when you look at it, I mean, like father, like daughter, the way she's reacted to being cast in the back, how much kind of rage she's holding on to at that point drives her character forward. It drives Lucifer forward at the same time. I think she gave, and she had a lot of, like, they also gave her some really good stuff even in this episode in terms of like messing with Maze, messing with Eve, messing with Amenadiel about
that was good.
Everybody like that. Like you can see I think she's written very well in terms of she is very much Lucifer's daughter and she's very much Chloe's daughter.
I don't think she's a badly written character, and if that's what came across, that's not how I meant it.
Okay.
It's more of she just starts off very one note, and even as the show rolls on with Lucifer, she's so a little too easily put off by him and angered and goes off on these tantrums. And you contrast that with how she is with everybody else, where she's much more reasonable. And I understand that for her, and that's why I played the James Bond clip, one, because I'm funny, but also because that was like her whole thing for so much of the season until things start to turn. And I would have liked a little bit more complexity in her character. She's a little one note in the beginning. But I will tell you this. I had a very visceral reaction to her hugging Chloe at the end of this episode. I was like, well, of course she hugs Chloe. You know, and look, it serves its purpose. It gets paid off. It's fine by the end of it. But I can only tell you about my reactions as I'm seeing these things. And as soon as like, I hate Lucifer, I hate Lucifer, I hate Lucifer. Oh, look, it's Chloe, and big hug, and she loves her. And I'm like, well, of course she does. Because why? Because why would the perfect Chloe have any kind of issues here other than being shot at occasionally?
I will say one thing just on your point around her kind of viscerally reacting to anything Lucifer related. I take that back to the first couple of seasons, where anytime anyone casually mentioned God, Lucifer lost his shit.
Yeah, well, again, she does have quite a bit of her father's personality, and not that's not necessarily a good thing.
And how? The murder of Lucifer Morningstar. The angel reveals her name as Rory, short for Aurora. Rory reveals that she is Lucifer and Chloe's daughter from the future. Rory tells Lucifer that he disappears in the future on August 4th at 10th and Swanson. Lucifer refuses to accept that he left his daughter, so he thinks that he must have been murdered. Lucifer decides to find clues to find out. This made no freaking sense to me. Clues to find out his mystery. May starts to have doubts on Rory after Rory only calls Eve her aunt and not Maze. Rory also doesn't recognize Amenadiel. Lucifer thinks he must have been murdered by Azrael's blade. Ella then opens up a board with all her suspicions on Lucifer, Amenadiel, and Maze. He keeps it safe, but it's later stolen. Lucifer blames Rory for this, angering her. Chloe reveals she stole the blade because she wants to keep Lucifer safe. Chloe refuses to give Lucifer the blade, and they fight. Chloe comes back to her senses and gives the blade to Lucifer. After having celestial qualities for a while, Chloe meets Dan and tells him that she had been powerless ever since he died and that she misses him so much. Andrew, this was a really... I was getting Bill and Ted vibes from this. You know, like, well, if we put the keys here, then we'll have them in the future. And it's like, he's trying to solve a murder that hasn't happened yet. That he, you know, it just, I don't know. This was not for me. I have to say the second half of the season was much stronger, and I enjoyed it a lot more. This first half, and this is a really good example of it, I was struggling with some of these episodes, and maybe you had a different take on it and can set me straight. But I definitely struggled with an entire episode of him solving a murder him trying to solve a murder that hadn't yet happened.
I think in terms of the concept for this episode, it works. I think I agree with you. The execution didn't work out so great because really what we're dealing with is that Lucifer's in denial.
Right.
Him abandoning his own daughter after acknowledging his own issues with his father is like cardinal sin to him. So he would much rather know that he got murdered by somebody than consciously abandon his daughter on some level.
Yeah.
That said, I mean, yeah, you're right. We're going to solve my murder in advance. And look, this show uses the word clues way too much, by the way. Not for anything that's supposed to be based with anything in the reality of policing. But and we'll talk about policing in this show in the next episode. But yeah, not a great one. I think, like I said earlier, I think some of the fun in this episode really is Rory interacting with the rest of the Lucifer team. Some of the stronger bits was, Chloe coming to terms with her addiction to the necklace, and then her getting kind of closure on some level with Dan as well, but not a great episode.
I did, Dave, like the idea that Rory was very much. We were doing I kept thinking about the Hulk from Endgame. Speaking of which, where it's just like, no, time doesn't change; it just becomes your future, that sort of thing. No, we were doing the Back to the Future rules. If I tell you, it doesn't happen. That sort of thing. And so everyone's trying to get her to talk about what happens in the future, and she won't do it. And she's very much like, no. I'm not here to do that. I'm here to find out why my father left me, and that's pretty much the mission. I did like that part of it. What'd you think of this episode?
Yeah, I kind of felt a bit spin spinning out the wheels. It's more Lucifer freaking out and going over the top. Though, to be fair, when he's thinking he's going to get murdered, that is a fairly rational thing to be very concerned about.
Is it? He's God.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, not yet, but yeah, like it's apparently in celestial rules. I guess even Azrael's blade could kill God. Maybe it's apparently like we know celestials can be killed.
Yeah, I get that. I still struggled with this though, that we have these partially immortal beings, and suddenly we're afraid of being knifed in an alley. But yeah, whatever.
I'm more struggling with the mortal beings who know that there is an afterlife, still getting worked up over death. Like when Dad died, it's like why is everyone sad? Like he's going to the afterlife. Like I mean, we get. I think that's kind of why they added in that he ended up in hell, not in heaven, to sort of give that thing. But yeah, it's like why are Amenadiel and Lucifer upset about this? They can just go and see him anytime. Chloe knows that there's an afterlife. Linda knows there's an afterlife. Trixie, yeah, she doesn't know, so that makes perfect sense. But yeah, it's so yeah. Like all of a sudden, like in the show, death is not that big a deal anymore. Like everyone knows that. Yeah, you're
definitely deflates the tension.
Yeah, like why would I be afraid of going to hell? I'm best friends with the devil.
What else about this episode before we move on to Alexis?
Yeah, this isn't really one that I had a lot of notes for, though. I do find it strange that like they sort of have this big deal with, like, apparently the dental assistant is the one that I think is going to kill me and we need to fix him up, and then he's never heard from again.
That was weird. That whole plot point just, I mean, yeah, they say they're going to get him back together with his wife, and he just disappears.
Yeah, I was expecting like some sitcom shenanigans or something to try and get them back together, but no, like it's just he's there and he's like, I'm gonna kill you, and then he just he was never heard from again.
He's probably gonna get his own spin-off on HBO Max or something.
Yeah, with John Cena.
Yes. Go ahead, Alexis. What are your thoughts?
Going back to what I was saying earlier, I do really like the arc with Chloe and how she actually attacks Lucifer with the blade because she is just too addicted to the power. And I thought that was really well done. I guess I'm not as interested in this whole hook with Lucifer and whole abandoning the future, because if it was me personally and I was told on, August 4th, you will go to 10th and Swanson and you will disappear, I'll be like, okay, then I guess on August 4th, I am either locking myself in my office or I'm buying a plane ticket and I'm leaving town. I guess I never really understand why they're making a big deal about how he's going to leave. It's like, it's Lucifer. He can find a way to not go to that area on that day. Right. In fact, they built the whole thing with the panic room, which was a freaking TARDIS. And it just... I don't know. I guess the way they just build it up just seems very unnecessary.
I kept waiting for them to give more details. Like,
yeah,
the way that she brings it up is like you're with Chloe, you round a corner, and then you're never heard from again. Were you fighting? What And I now understand, having seen the whole thing play out, why you don't get details, because Chloe never gave her any details. That's all that's all she told her. But. I don't know. I think you're right, Alexis. When you don't have any details and it's so vague, and Rory's so angry, you're like, I feel like there's something in the middle here that I'm missing, that that's causing everyone to react this way.
It's like that whole scene in Robin Hood Men in Tights where Maid Marian goes, he's going to lure you in a trap, and it's like, you mustn't go to the trap, and he goes, okay, fine, I won't go. Like, you're making this much more complicated than it needs to be, guys.
Like usually how that works out is they decide, I'm going to stay away from it, but then some contrivance happens where like they have to go, and that's sort of like the shocking moment of like, oh, this is how it happens.
God help me for praising a Tom Cruise movie, but Minority Report actually pulled that off very successfully.
Good movie.
Well, I'll tell you, I don't think this was the world's greatest written episode, but what would have possibly helped in the writing of the episode to make it better, Andrew? Do you know?
I would say it would be Grammarly.
It would!
I'm going to go let my dog in.
Perfect. Hey, Grammarly's AI-powered products help people communicate more effectively. Grammarly helps you write mistake-free on Gmail, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and nearly anywhere else you write on the web. Grammarly corrects hundreds of grammar, punctuation, and spelling mistakes, while also catching contextual errors, improving your vocabulary, and suggesting style improvements. To download Grammarly today, go to getgrammarly.com/W2M network. Again, that's getgrammarly.com/W2M network to download Grammarly for free, and it'll help you fix your crappy writing and your silly Netflix show. Anyway,
I'm going to challenge on that point because I had a thought on that one.
Yes, sir.
So I think one thing, and this is, I can't remember where I heard this. It might have been the Beyond the Screenplay podcast or something else, or maybe it was Escapist, but they were talking about the nature of writing in Marvel movies.
Yeah.
Of course, we're going to bring this back to Marvel because what can't you do these days?
It's the only thing happening in the world right now.
Shang-Chi seems to be proving that one. But anyway, the comment was that in some cases, Marvel makes a conscious choice, and we're not going to talk about Iron Man or Civil War or anything like that, but they choose to sometimes place character over plot in a lot of cases in terms of what kind of drives the story forward. So I think...
it was a movie, Bob. I think that he was...
Was it Bob? I can't remember who it was, but...
I think so.
Any case, I think that goes to the point of basically if you're sometimes running more towards taking your character beats in your character interactions and things like that, sometimes your plot logic doesn't always hang together 100%.
It's an interesting thing that you bring up because I'm wondering how much of that in the writer's room, and there's a term called killing your babies, and and I don't know how much it applies to this situation, but that's what I think about. When you've got a writer's room together and they're working through, the bigger story arcs, and then they have to fill in the blanks with some smaller stories and character interactions and whatnot, and then eventually they have to write dialogue. And I'm wondering how much they're like, we need to get the kids to the mall. So I understand that our method of getting there doesn't make a tremendous amount of sense, but it'll be fine if we dress it up nice. And somebody else in the room going, no, why can't we write things that just make sense? Because in order to make it make sense, you're going to have to add more to it, and we've only got X amount of time to work with. So
it becomes too convoluted.
Yeah, and right, and then if we add too much to this, then it becomes a spoiled soup, and you have the other end of the problems where they over-explain things, and so these are the kind of details and minutia I like about film craft and TV writing and whatnot, is what all goes into these conversations before the final script is written, and how much do people have to give up, and like when you guys brought up a couple of different avenues, a couple of areas where people examine films and television. I always think about pitch meeting. That's and how much of that is him walking through the plot and the producer character going, well, that doesn't make any sense. Yes, but I want it in the movie, and I it's a parody, but I bet there's a lot of truth in that in the actual writing process. Yeah, and there's actually, I'll relate a quick anecdote about the end of another series, Battlestar Galactica. I was a big fan of this series, and which one? Sorry, the 2003 to 2009 one. And it had a great writer on it who ran the show, Ron Moore. He wrote Deep Space Nine. He writes. He's writing quite a bit of Next Generation. Quite a bit of Next Gen. He's currently working on Outlander. He worked for All Mankind. He's done Carnival, a lot of great stuff. Okay. But in any case, he had a great podcast he was doing with it, and he kind of was talking about breaking the last half of the last season of Battlestar. And he kind of laid out the storyline that they were working on, and it was really convoluted, where it was like, this happens, and this happens, and this happens, and this happens. And he was having trouble breaking everything. And he just tells a story where he went home, his wife told him to chill out, and it just came to him, focus on the characters. Yeah. Because that's ultimately what people care about. It's about the people and the characters that are in the show, their relationships and their own arc resolutions, and how that comes together, and maybe not worry about the plot as much. And I think, it becomes of that trade-off there. Yeah. Just to kind of put a bullet on this, period on this rather, I do think that the broad, your broad general audiences key into character interactions more and aren't really thinking about the logical, follow through on plot. I think it's when you have these sort of deconstructive kind of conversations that we're having and that Robert and I have on Damn You Hollywood is where that stuff comes to the forefront. But as I keep saying on those shows, yes, people who are deconstructing it notice it. The general populace really doesn't. All right. Yeah. A lot dirtier than that. Episode 6. We are now into the second half of this thing. Amenadiel and Officer Harris investigate the murder of a black man named Kevin. Much to his anger, Amenadiel finds out the detective on this case is Reuben.
Reuben, I think.
Riboflavin, got it. The officer who assaulted Caleb previously. Harris tells Amenadiel not to rock the boat. Don't rock the boat, baby, rock the boat. Since he is a rookie. He then asks Ella and Chloe for help about the information on Reuben. But Reuben tells Amenadiel that he has changed and suggests that Kevin's killer could be his girlfriend, Michaela Williams. Meanwhile, Lucifer gives Rory Christmas presents for all the Christmases that he missed for her and even sings a song, but Rory still isn't amused. Amenadiel and Harris finds Michaela and the real killer, but Reuben arrives and aims his gun at Michaela. Amenadiel convinces him not to do it, and Reuben arrests both the killer and Michaela. Amenadiel starts to suspect that he doesn't want to be a police officer anymore. Amenadiel and Harris take Michaela for a final look at her house before going to jail. Chloe finds some shocking news about the precinct. Has anyone ever seen Higher Learning? David, Higher Learning?
Nope.
Andrew, know what I'm talking about?
I'm going to say no on that one.
Alexis, have you seen Higher Learning with Ice Cube and Busta Rhymes and whatnot?
No clue what you're talking about.
Cool.
Yeah, that explains why I hadn't seen it.
Okay.
No offense to those people at all. It's just not my wheelhouse.
I can't remember who directed it, and I'll make this really quick. So, Higher Learning takes place on a college campus, and it deals a lot with race relations. And I can't remember the actor's name. White actor. I'll look it up.
Okay, that narrows it down.
Yeah,
Michael Rappaport.
Yes, Michael Rappaport. Perfect.
Right, I'm just pulling up the wiki on it. I didn't realize this was a Singleton movie.
Yeah. Thank you. I knew it was somebody I liked. In any case, point being, there's a scene at the end of there's Michael Rappaport's whole arc in this movie that he wants to be an engineer, and he's surrounded by Asian kids who of course are all taking to the math a lot easier than he's finding it to be, and he gets very frustrated. He ends up joining like a neo-Nazi group and all of this stuff. And at the very end of the movie, I can't remember the whole thing, but he's got a gun. There are cops involved, and he's clearly the person doing wrong in this scene, but he's white, you see, and the cops are white, you see, and so they arrive, and it's got to be the other people involved in this scene that are in the wrong. And
message,
yeah. And Michael Rappaport's like, I just wanted to be an engineer, as he's holding this gun, and the cops are like, you can still be an engineer. And I get the point John Singleton is trying to make, but it's so over the top and it's so hackneyed that it takes away from anything that this movie was trying to say. It is utterly stupid and unrealistic. And so,
Mark, have you seen the trailer for the Karen movie?
Like, what now?
Oh yeah, this is like a real thing. When I first saw it, I'm like, so this was a Saturday Night Live sketch that they did when they had Jordan Peele as a host, right? Mm-hmm. Cleo, give me that. Don't chew that.
Well, was it actually like a parody thing? I could have sworn it was actually a real.
It is real.
Movie.
Everyone thought it was a parody, but it's real.
Right? Yeah. It's like the parody of every like super hardcore leftist talking point about race relations in modern America. Young black couple, they move up into like a wealthy suburban area, and their next door neighbor, she is just the epitome of a racist white woman. She's like installing a new security system in their house because the black people are nearby, and she's like coming over to visit their house. Like, oh, look at you slaving away in the kitchen.
All right. Anyway,
think of it as Jordan Peele and Neil LaBute made a movie together and removed any concept of self-restraint.
Go watch it, post it to the chat, and run.
I sympathize. No.
It's bad enough when you people mention the Eternals again, okay? We're not going down that road.
I sympathize with the writers wanting to deal with the relationship between the black community and law enforcement. And since they write a part a law enforcement show, I don't feel like it's completely out of place to deal with that subject matter. But a deft hand would have been nice. Maybe we don't have to hit the audience over the head with Thor's hammer.
Wait, Mark, are you saying that the messaging in this episode was not subtle?
So here we have this woman cowering, with weaponless, just peeing herself in the scene, and the cop goes, "Don't move or I'll shoot." And the woman,
the detective actually says, "Take her down. She's armed."
right? She's coming right
completely
for us.
ignoring the man dressed like all in black, carrying a
He might as well
handgun,
had a
shooting
sign
at
that
her.
said, I'm a murderer.
Like I almost like that. Yeah, it's like almost like that Family Guy thing where like they do everything except for like get the little chit out. Okay, like which skin tone is a threat and which one is an innocent bystander.
I would never make the argument that cops sometimes make bad decisions in the heat of the moment. It happens. And sometimes in those situations, it's also racially motivated. But how many times do you have somebody who's clearly unarmed, cowering, and the cops go, murder her where she stands?
Not to mention, they build up this whole thing that there's a cover-up in the precinct, that this guy got promoted to detective, even though Chloe finds there's been multiple complaints against him. The fact he says, for the record, I actually do like this little bit where he says, that wasn't me, I changed. And you actually think we're going to get character developed. And then he's like, and then all of a sudden he goes into, nope, we're going after the girlfriend who's also black. Right. It's like, oh my God. That was a nice
that was the only part of this thing that worked.
Yeah, but again, it's like the show, you think they're building up this whole thing with the cover-ups at the station, and that goes nowhere. And I could be wrong, but I think by after the next episode, it's never brought up again. The only time we see it is in the epilogue that Harris has made detective, and good on her.
Let me say this to you, Andrew, and then we can go back to Dave and Alexis for further comment. If Hollywood is going to continue to speak to the relationship between law enforcement and the African American community, they have to do a better job than this, or Candyman, or any number of things where it wasn't handled well at all, because essentially you want things to change and you're using art to try to engender change, and you're not going to get that if you continually handle it like buffoons. People are just going to stop listening, and the point that you're trying to make is going to be lost, even though it's a salient point and one that needs to be addressed.
Oh, absolutely. And I think when I was watching this, it's like, this is the show that's going to try and tackle this topic, which, just complete clarity, this is a topic that is real, that needs to be addressed in a number of different ways. Quick side plug, my martial arts instructor, Jay Cooper, has a podcast called The Baying of the Hound. He has a couple of, he was a LEO for 20 years. He's got a great conversation with another guy named Dee Burton, who's been a longtime LEO. They talk about a lot of these issues, and it's well worth the listen. But
I'm sorry, LEO?
Law enforcement officer.
Oh, okay. So I've honestly never heard that.
Lion, rawr.
Yeah, I'm a Scorpius.
His reaction to that would probably be really hilarious at this point. But anyway, I'll replug the episode and the podcast later. But anyway, I think part of the problem that you're running in here is that you're running into a show that has, I'm going to say, a negotiable relationship with police work. Like this isn't even CSI level in terms of accuracy or anything like that. And CSI wasn't that good. It's not like we're dealing with The Wire. But
so many big screens behind everyone.
Like, they treat LA as, one conglomerated area, and it's not. Right. It's various different precincts, it's various different areas that all have different relationships and things like that. And I can give them credit to trying to deal with it, but like you said, is just falls so flat on its face that it hurts. And I think it actually takes away from some of the better parts of this episode. And we'll talk about that in a minute, but it just, I kind of just like checked out on this part of it, because it's like, this was the weak episode of the season.
Yeah, I want to have a conversation about law enforcement and all of that, but you have to raise the level of dialogue. If you keep it like this, people who are it's the conversation I have with my father. His father is like way left, Democrat, and he's marching for women this week, that kind of thing. Wanted to bring my kids to a Black Wall Street, to a
Occupy Wall Street.
That's the one. Occupy Wall Street protest, until I told him, no, that's child abuse, and you won't do that. But so, and I tell him, I'm like, you may be making good points, Dad. You may be trying to convince me that the things that Democrats are fighting for are worthy. of being listened to, but your whole way of doing it sucks so bad I don't want to listen to you talk anymore.
Okay,
And so your message, and he was like, no, the ideas are what's important here. No, the messaging is what's important. If you can't deliver your message in a way that people can digest and are willing to hear you speak more about it, you're going to lose your audience, and then you're just pissing in the wind. Go ahead, Andrew.
I was going to say, like, to that point exactly. Like, I mean, let's go to an inherently silly show, Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Yeah,
I haven't watched the latest season, but they have an episode earlier on where they deal with racism among the police, and they nail it.
Yeah. Now, Brooklyn Nine-Nine actually handles. I've been keeping up with it. It actually handles the stuff fairly well.
Yeah, and I know,
as dumb as that show can be.
Yeah, and I mean, I know they've taken a lot of. I think they've taken a lot of critique from being a cop show and kind of reframing itself. I haven't watched the latest season, but the one episode they did even before that dealt with it a lot more deftly than this one.
Moving on from this, Alexis, what are your thoughts on this episode beyond what we've already discussed?
The one thing I really liked about this episode was Officer Harris's portrayal. She gives a really great speech at the end where she's trying to convince Amenadiel not to quit. Because it's clear that he's not cut out to do this, and he's getting too emotionally wrapped up. And he asks her, why didn't you take the detective position and leave? And she says, because they were going to ship me out somewhere else. And he talks something like that. I don't know the LA area well enough to understand totally what she was going for there, but I love the line where he says, it's like they almost killed her, and she says, but they didn't because we were there. And that's a great line. The fact that there's gonna be, if there are dirty cops on there, then it's up to the good cops. It's up to the people who are there to, it's like
it's the old CM Punk it's the old CM Punk argument. If I leave, I can't fix things from within. I'm now on the outside, and I have no access.
Wrestling reference.
Click.
Bingo.
Yeah, no. Again, it was a little ham-fisted and not handled the best way, but I really like Harris's character, and I'm not gonna lie, I wish she had shown up earlier in the series. I think she could have been a really good character to interact with Chloe and Dan and Ella and all of them. This is a character I would have liked to have seen more of.
Yeah, agreed. What are your thoughts, Dave?
Yeah, I'm not gonna dive into the politics here because that's just such a big, huge topic, and it's a whole other podcast, whole other.
Yeah, it's like we don't like to go to bed at a decent hour tonight.
Yes, yeah. Don't worry, but yeah, it's like if you're going to throw something this weighty into the show, 5 episodes before the end of the show is probably not the time to do that. Like, I mean, sure, we had the thing with Amenadiel and the kid that he met who got shot by
Caleb,
that was sort of the first bit of this. But again, it happened, and then the show moved on until this moment. So yeah, like functionally within the show, it was more just this is the reason to get Chloe to rejoin the force so that she can fight the discrimination, whatever you want to call it, from the inside.
But I think it also adds to Amenadiel's purpose and mission in life. He doesn't just want to be God because being God's an important position. This is one of the elements that leads him to believe that being God is an agent of change, and not sort of a cold, distant approach to things of, well, we'll let the humans do what they need to do and we'll just sort of be up here. Seeing the effects of socio-political things on the African-American community and identifying as one of them as he does, he's going, but as God, I can help move this along. I can be a part of the change. And this episode is what starts to get him to that place in his mind. Dave.
Yeah, I think we've kind of said everything that we can say within this format, at least. Again, there are other places where these discussions are better suited to be had.
Yep, I just wanted to make sure that you didn't on anything else besides what we've already covered. If you wanted to say anything else,
yes, much appreciated, Mark. Thank you.
Episode 7. Nice.
Oh, can I jump in for one more quick thing?
God damn it!
I will. Okay, 10 words or less. Did like everything with Lucifer and Rory in this one. I think this is probably one of the more charming versions of Lucifer missing the point of trying to make people happy.
Yeah,
I did like what they were going for on the whole guitar piano duet at the end. that then got mixed over with the other thing we've just been talking about, and kind of unfortunately killed the momentum on that one.
It sure did. To the point that I didn't remember it until you just brought it up.
I was going to say, it's like, I think we just missed half the episode because we wanted to talk about how the show completely misfired on the other half.
Yeah, which kind of demonstrates the detriment of how big that misfire was.
But yeah, all of a sudden we forget how gorgeous the Lucifer's apartment was, all decked up for Christmas.
Oh, that was nice.
Yeah, it was gorgeous.
Yeah, and it's nice seeing Lucifer trying to do the right thing, but totally missing the mark in Lucifer fashion. Like, his heart's in the right place. It's just he's all thumbs.
Tell me, you guys, we all knew what was going to happen when he whipped out the baseball and the glove, and he handed her the baseball. It's just like, and say goodbye to that expensive whiskey bottle. It's like, tell me, we all saw it coming.
It was amusing.
I want to know what Lucifer's views on Christmas are. Like, is that like the birthday party for the one annoying little brother that he can't stand?
This show has gone out of its way to never mention Jesus.
Well, some people take Jesus very seriously.
You think?
I don't know.
Yeah, just a bit.
I don't know if you've been to America, Alexis, but we love the Jesus here.
I live in Alberta. I know it.
I was commenting about that because I'm grateful that the show never brought up Jesus, because that's a Pandora's box that even the assholes at Fox knew that they didn't want to open.
Yeah, Jesus and the Virgin Mary, pretty much everything else.
It is a fun commentary about our socio-religious culture in America, that you want to do a show about the devil? Who doesn't? You wanted to do a show about God? Sure, the more the merrier. I'd like to talk about Jesus. Go fuck yourself. That's not happening.
And yet nobody watched God, the Devil, and Bob. Still a great show.
I saw an episode, if it makes you feel any better.
Oh, I've got the DVD of the whole series.
Yeah,
I love that show.
Oh, I might
this
check the rest
all
of
with
it
a
out.
hilarious subtext that Tom Ellis's father and sister are pastors.
Episode 7. My best fiend's wedding. The fiend. Maze and Eve start preparing for their wedding when Adam arrives. This is my other favorite character.
That Adam, as they say.
This show should be the first show in history to get like a writing award just for the episode titles.
Okay. Actually, Mark, before you go on, I got to say something about this episode. You guys have seen very clearly that I'm a feminist, but I have never been the angry, flag-carrying feminist. I'm the one that when Marx uses the phrase mansplaining, I tell him to shut the hell up because I hate that term. It's like, no, it's not mansplaining. It's just being condescending. This episode, I have never wanted to see a character get punched so hard in my life for being for actually personifying mansplaining. And when Eve kicks the crap out of him and mentions her rainbow-colored belts, I was cheering.
Because I am such a troll, and because I enjoy trollish things, this was my favorite character in the entire episode, in the entire season.
Well, I'm glad they gave me someone to hate that much. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. If you can get that reaction out of a character, then you're doing the right thing, because that's what Adam was there to do. Adam was there to be hated, and sweet Lucifer, they got that right.
Sweet Lucifer.
Incel Adam.
I'm not quite sure I would go incel.
Needed to make him fatter and beardier. Anyway,
my first reaction was like, this is Adam? I thought he'd be better looking.
All right, so anyway, Adam arrives, and meets Maze and Eve at Lux. Adam tells Eve that he wants to reconcile with her, but Eve tells Adam that she has already moved on. Adam then kidnaps Linda like you do. Eve then, how many times has Linda been kidnapped in this series?
I've lost count.
Eve then lures Adam.
Oh, I'm in trouble.
I'm in danger.
That was actually a great delivery for everyone. Like, oh God, I'm in trouble, aren't I? That was really great. You gotta wonder at one point she was just about to say, not again.
Show me to the car.
She is so damn good in this show.
Yeah, she's still overall one of my favorite characters. Her line deliveries are fantastic. Anyway, Maze seduces Adam, which upsets Eve. Maze admits she told Adam about the wedding because she doesn't want to become a mother, which makes Eve leave in anger, and nobody talks to each other on this show, and Three's Company happens. Meanwhile, Chloe tells Amenadiel that there have been complaints filed against every officer in the precinct, and Amenadiel decides to quit the LAPD. Adam releases Linda, and Lucifer does a favor for Maze. Maze then brings all of her demon siblings in dead bodies, and reconciles with Eve with Lucifer's help. How very romantic. Adam comes to terms with moving on, and Maze and Eve get married. At the after party, Rory tells Chloe that she dies when she time traveled to the past. After drinking too much, Ella calls out everyone for knowing about Lucifer being the devil, and everyone knowing about it. Ella then asks everyone why they didn't tell her when the world is ending. Amenadiel and everyone else are left in shock by this news given by Ella. Yeah, I think this is about where we start to wrap things up with Eve and Maze, which, to make room for having the other things I got to deal with at the end of this. And I have to say, we can talk about this now. Over the course of the preceding episodes, we've been in and out on Maze and Eve and their relationship. And I tell you, Maze has one of the best character arcs in the entire series in that, she goes from being this hedonistic torturer character to somebody who clearly has all, beneath the surface, all of these frailties and insecurities and whatnot. And her reaction is always to self-sabotage as opposed to communicate, because she doesn't really have the language or those kinds of skills. And but by virtue of where the plot takes them, she's sort of forced into that. And, she makes this grand gesture in order to get Eve back. And Maze, for the first time in 6 seasons, feels like an actual person now. And I'll tell you, Dave, it's one of the, this is where the show starts winning me back, is how they handled Maze and her evolution as a human being and not just Lucifer's cranky sidekick. You have any thoughts on Eve and Maze?
Yeah, it was just kind of nice to have the closure there. It's after 6 seasons of Maze constantly self-sabotaging herself, it's still a little bit old. Yeah, but that's kind of like my only sort of real issue. Is like, you finally found happiness, but oh no, I can't be happy because and
who are you, fucking Batman?
Yeah, it's like you've already learned that demons can self-actualize, so you have a whole world of possibilities ahead of you. You're not trapped by anything due to the way you were created or who your parents were. I mean, of course, you're still going to have issues. And yeah, this is someone who, through most of her life, her problem solving has involved just stabbing. But
nothing that a good stabbing won't solve.
So yeah, it felt a little bit contrived, her bringing in Adam to sabotage the wedding. Like, I kind of wish they'd sort of found another angle if they're going to do something with Maze at this point. Maybe like overprotective of Eve now that she's finally found happiness or something along those lines. But it wasn't terrible, and yeah, it was nice to sort of see Maze sort of find her place and find someone to share it with. Yeah, Adam, I mean, I guess I'll drop this here now. It's like, it's kind of interesting the way that sort of I'll attribute this to Neil Gaiman, sort of views the Celestials as sort of the first family of the universe. So therefore it's incredibly dysfunctional. And, with Adam, the idea of like, you're the first man on Earth. And like, this woman was literally made for you from your own body. And you just had a monopoly on her. We have that expression, not if you were the last man on Earth. It's like, well, I was the first man on Earth. so sort of him having to deal with, now there are other fish in the sea, and he actually has to up his game to sort of use the phrase, if he actually wants to be someone that women would actually like. He sort of, I say I view him a bit less of an incel, more of like a pickup artist, an unsuccessful pickup artist.
Sure.
Yeah, sort of, imbibing all the sort of very superficial, masculine.
I was thinking about a Bloom County comic strip where you have a guy and he's got like the Hawaiian shirt on and the big afro. He's clearly a product of the 70s, but he's in a late 80s bar in time, and he's like, I don't understand how anything works around here. This, like, none of the things he was doing are working. He's like, I don't understand how the bar scene works now.
He was that sort of thing. Bad at it.
Yeah, and even sort of like the sort of has-been attitudes, like like platypus. What kind of a name is that for an animal? Like all the animals. I named them. Like that was me. That's more touchdowns in a single game.
Yeah, I love that even Eve brings up, it's like, Mr. I named all the animals. It's like, you got to wonder, how many times has he said that?
Yeah, geez, Adam, that was 5,000 years ago. Get over it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and so like explains Abel's one appearance in the show and his caricature.
Yeah, you sort of get through the whole all these original characters, and like even Eve, her like, I was built for a certain role, and I don't like that. Lucifer is really the guy that I had the thing for, not at. And like, it's an interesting take on things, and like I sort of almost wondered at the beginning of the show if, when they sort of get into the more like metaphysical, existential stuff, is like I almost wonder if like God created the world the way it is just so he could sort of figure out how to run a family, sort of having like humans kind of have to go through this constant passing down of the generations, working out how to raise children, how to deal with all these issues, sort of as a way of fixing his own family. They never really went that way. I just thought it was an interesting take on things.
The thematic subtext of the show, once you get past the silliness and the cop drama stuff, is how much the show deals with pre-prescribed roles that people are cast into, and what do you do about that? Do you just kind of give in and let those roles define you? Do you rebel against it? Do you try to create your own path? And therein lies the drama of the entire series, Andrew. And it gets exemplified here in this interaction, in this episode.
Definitely, and it goes back to talking about Maze and her self-sabotage. It's also people's own cycles that they impose upon themselves by accepting whatever role they've been cast into. And I think one of the strongest moments of the series of this episode comes near the end when they're doing their vows, and Maze just drops all pretenses, drops all defensive measures, and just confesses her love to Eve right there.
Yeah, and
that was a really affecting moment because it was that character dropping all of her defenses for once.
Right.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, really strong episode. We have talked about Adam. He was the whole writing, the performance, everything was hilarious. A lot of other good things about it. There was a lot of kind of small little things. I think one of the moments I loved, and it's blink and you miss it, but when Maze is coming down the aisle, Trixie's on the end, and like they fist bump and stuff like that, going back to how those two have had a relationship. And it's like they just are picking up on the really good character moments that remind you of how well this series has worked in a lot of those respects.
All right, Alexis, finish us up here on this episode. What did you think?
Well, Lucifer definitely called in a favor for them to get married at the Walt Disney Concert Hall in one of the rooftop gardens.
I love your attention to detail. Like, I don't even pick up on any of this shit. You're like, did you know?
You got to remember, former wedding photographer.
I get it, man.
Yeah. No, even the little bit that there's a sign that said, take a seat, not decide. Either way, it's for a bride. I've seen that at lesbian weddings before. That's, not a common, but I've seen it done a lot of times. It was a very cute detail. No, I really did. The wedding was beautiful. I agree with what Andrew said about Maze dropping her pretenses and her fear and just blurting out, I love you so fucking much. By the way, am I the only one that was a little caught off guard and forgot, oh yeah, that's right, Netflix, they can swear here.
Well, they kind of rolled it in a few times here, I think it was Rory who kind of first called out Lucifer on his own bullshit. And I actually think the way they use it, not all the time, I think when it hits well.
Although, again, the whole thing with Rory got a little on my nerves because she says she's not going to show up at the Taylors. Then she goes, but Lucifer didn't think she was going to show, so he didn't show up. And then she's yelling at him about, like, you didn't show up. And he's like, you told me you weren't going to come. It's like, but you didn't show up. It's like, oh my God. I know you. No, she's not a teenager. She's in her 20s. It's like, seriously.
Well, even older because she ages slowly. That she's just half celestial.
See, I actually thought she was like a late teenager. And what I was going to say is, even for an asshole teenager, she's beyond the pale. And that's a great example of it. Like, you said you weren't going, so why are you mad at me that I didn't show up to the thing you said you weren't going to be at?
Plus, I had to save the wedding.
For the record, I love that they bring back the idea that the only way they can get the demons onto Earth is to have them into freshly dead bodies. This is similar to what we saw in the last season's finale with the prison bus. Going over and all the prisoners getting possessed by the demons. I even love the little line with Carol. It's like, why does it smell like a 3-body crime scene here? And Amenadiel's like, can you believe they just fertilized the flowers? Although, again, the whole thing with Ella, I get that she's starting to suspect, but the fact that she was able to pick up that they were zombies there so quickly and how forced she sounded, I'm like, okay, honey, this is a little weird. Again, I'm not against Ella figuring things out. She's an incredibly smart character, and she is the kind of person who would put 2 and 2 together like this. I just really cannot stand how they ham-fisted her suddenly putting everything together so suddenly into the last season.
Yeah, we're gonna talk a lot about Ella with this next episode here. So if there's no objections from the council, I'll move on to the next episode. All right, Save the Devil, Save the World, episode 8. Ella reveals a series of events that she has recorded that causes her to believe that the apocalypse is coming. As a result, Lucifer attempts to return to heaven to assume his role as God finally, but he is unable to summon his wings. Just always something. Discovering that Linda
has
has
a pill for that.
Oh, I was debating using that one, but
Someone had to.
Yeah.
Someone had to. I was like, I'm
well
just gonna
done.
say it.
Discovering that Linda has been working on a book based on her sessions with him, Lucifer and his friends go through the book in an attempt to understand the situation with May, while Maze attempts to help Dan confront his guilt and get into heaven without success, until he relives his death and realizes what he must do. During a confrontation with Rory, Lucifer proves his love for his daughter by making himself vulnerable so she can shoot him, which is becoming a family tradition, in the hand. And after reading Linda's manuscript, Rory finally understands that the love that her parents share. While Lucifer realizes that he is finally ready to become God, he decides that he doesn't want to be, as it isn't his true calling. Lucifer comforts Linda over her perceived failure to help him, and Amenadiel visits to reveal that he knows why the world is ending. So the two things I really want to cover here. One, we talk about Ella now. This is one, my favorite episode probably of the entire season. But two, Ella talking about feeling like she was betrayed and feeling like she was left out and she was made to be a fool. And she never, and this is proof that she was never really part of the inner circle. I loved all of that, and I don't want to sleep on her real name, the actress that plays her, because she does just such a phenomenal job here.
Amy Garcia.
Thank you. Yeah, Amy Garcia. I don't know what else she's done or what she's going to do now that she's done with Lucifer, but someone give her more work. Get someone call her agent. She's a stellar actress, and her being able to emote and feel like, I thought we were all friends. This is important stuff. Don't you remember I had a crisis of faith even? Is anyone paying any attention to me?
And she's doing this all wearing a kigurumi.
Yeah, I thought that was all brilliant. Like I said, the writing of the show is a little uneven at times, and some might say even a bit goofy. But when they nail it, it's some of the best writing on television. That's what I mean by it, Andrew. It's such an uneven show. It either is some of the best writing I've ever heard, or it's so stupid I'm on my phone on Twitter trying to find what movies have been changing their dates. But this was the high point of it. I really, really like the Ella stuff here.
Yeah, the Ella stuff was really good. I think, it's one of those things where also people don't talk to each other, so they could make the explanation really well. It's like, let's see now. Linda went into a catatonic state. Dan tried to kill Lucifer. Chloe went to the Catholic Church and tried to hire a priest to kill Lucifer. On the spectrum of things, Ella having a drunken meltdown at a wedding is a pretty healthy reaction to finding out that the celestial world exists.
Sure. Very reasonable.
But, yeah, I definitely thought that was good. Amy Garcia has been one of the great characters. This is probably one of my, wishes for what they would have done, to bring Azrael back in for another episode, because I think that combination, going back to that Source episode was really strong. And anytime the actress who plays Azrael shows up, I think has been a really interesting player within this series. So, that probably could have, I'm probably more in a case of what I wish would have happened than what really happened. But in this case, I was pretty happy with it.
Yeah, I also like the exercise of going through the book and sort of re-examining the last 5 seasons of the show. And
that's what
I absolutely love when they're reading the first draft. It's like, did you just say this? That's a clue. I just solved another case. Science gack, science gack, science. Hilarious.
You picked up. Thank you. You picked up on what I was going to say. That parody bit was. Isn't it funny how it's the first person we talk to that's the murderer? And she's even wearing funny T-shirt on her T-shirt.
I didn't catch that. Oh my god!
Yeah, she's got funny. It's this literally funny T-shirt. or hacky t-shirt or something.
Despite the meta humor of all of it, I enjoyed the sort of psychological and emotional exercise of going through all of the stuff that's happened to him and sort of re-examining it in a new light. That a lot of that worked for me, Alexis. I thought, like I said, some of the strongest writing of the show.
I'm just going to say this. There were a lot of people that when Maze walked in her wedding night lingerie with the wig and the blue contact lenses, looked at that, pointed at their TVs and shouted, "Bucket list."
Let me know if people start cosplaying as Maze in her what do you call it?
Wedding night lingerie. Her wedding night lingerie. Yeah. Oh God. It's bad enough when I see all the Harley Quinn lingerie ones.
I'm gonna need you to make a spreadsheet. I need to know how many Demon Slayer, how many Harley Quinns, how many Maze.
Oh, you're getting a graphic soon of all the Loki variants. I'm putting together a page that's just going to be like, here's all the Loki variants from this year, folks. Count the alligators.
What else you got?
Probably enough Loki variants that you can do one of those collages that actually, when you zoom out, just turns into a picture of Loki.
Giant Loki. Yeah, exactly.
Anything else about this episode?
Very funny. I love just how Linda's reacting to people reading, and she has to keep reminding them it's a first draft. And any of us who have ever tried to do like any professional level writing can understand that. We've all been there. It's just like, oh my God, don't judge. I haven't rewritten it yet. We all have had that case, and I just love how she has to keep reminding everyone about that. I really love the dialogue between Maze and Dan. I guess I just really like the idea that Dan has latched onto her and Amenadiel so thoroughly. The previous scenes where Dan's screwing with Amenadiel, and Amenadiel looks like he's freaking insane because he's talking to a ghost.
Right.
You know, oh my God, those are so great. And I love how well he tries to play it off. But I do like that she is genuinely trying to help him. You know, there's a real bond in the chemistry between those characters. And I love that. And yeah, I love the self-parody in the book when they're reading it. Just I really love that. And even that ending, the fake ending that Linda wrote, where Lucifer ascends to heaven, becomes God, and it was all thanks to one woman. It just starts right off, and even Lucifer cuts her off like, are you kidding me? And she's like, I couldn't think of anything else. Okay, so I just wrote a happy ending for myself.
David, what do you think of this episode?
Yeah. When it started, I'm like, oh no, it's going to be a clip show.
Oh, I was worried about that too.
Yeah, thankfully it wasn't. Yeah, well, once I realized that, okay, they're doing a bit of a gag here, then it's like, okay, that's bad. But yeah, it was sort of a good look over the series. So sort of, it almost reminds you of like near the end of Avatar: The Last Airbender, where they did sort of a similar sort of parody look at the events leading up to it that also ties into the character motivations.
Oh, the play episode?
Yes.
Yes. Which I swear that was also written as a tongue-in-cheek insult toward the movie.
Yeah.
What was the line? It's like, although the special effects were good, it's like, no, that was a slam at the movie.
Yeah, I think that was done way before the movie, but it's nice to think about. I'm not sure on the timeline there, but
I can't remember. But a lot of people insist that line was thrown in there to throw shade at Shyamalan.
Yeah, I mean, Batman the Animated Series definitely threw shade at Joel Schumacher.
Oh my God, yes. It's like, I heard that. Yeah, I love that
Shut
line.
up, Joel.
Yeah, it's like, I heard the car can climb up roads. Yeah, sure, Joel, whatever.
Yeah, so Loki.
Yes.
I already said that.
Yeah, you said Lucifer.
You steal my catchphrase. But yeah, like, it was okay. I was kind of hoping that they would get to the end point there, though I do like the bit where Amenadiel jumps off the side of the building to ascend to heaven, and at first I'm wondering, like,
corkscrew thing.
Yeah, like show off, and it's like I was like wondering, like does he know his wings still work? You know, like is it just gonna be like, doof? It's like, Lucy, got a problem.
Oh no, it's like fucking Ed Norton going out of the plane in the Hulk. Oh no.
Yeah, but no, then he ascends. But then Ella's reaction to seeing like him in angel mode for the first time, like, you know that the actress, she was just reacting to nothing, but she really sold like the awe of seeing something sacred for the first time.
Speaking of Ella, there's also another scene that I can't believe we keep forgetting that at the very end of this, she has Carol come and pick her up. And I actually really love that bit because Ella's been complaining and whining essentially about how she doesn't feel like her friends trust her, and now she realizes she can't tell Carol what's going on.
Right.
Yeah.
He doesn't-
Now you're on
and-
the other side.
Yeah, exactly. And you just see the light go off in her head essentially, and she's like, oh, as she's trying to explain to Carol, that she can't tell him what's going on. And again, he is written so well that he says, I trust you. I know what's in your heart. I trust you. And it's a great scene for them.
It is.
I do
very
like
well
that.
acted.
Yeah, I do like that they call out that Lucifer's like, well, I always told you I was the devil.
I thought you were an actor.
Yeah, true, but like you can't really blame Lucifer so much for it because like he always is honest about I am the devil. He never denies that.
All right. Lost my place here. Episode 9. We are almost done. Almost all the way through this. Goodbye, Lucifer. Amenadiel tells Lucifer that the siblings are messing with prayers, and that is, I love this bit. And that
The
is why,
lion on death row. Oh my god.
and that is why the world is ending. Lucifer tells Amenadiel that he isn't going to be God anymore, which surprises Amenadiel. Vincent Lamech, Dan's murderer, escapes from prison. Chloe informs Lucifer that it is the date that Rory says that Lucifer disappears. Lucifer builds a panic room very quickly, by the way, with like it's fucking Minecraft, to lock himself in until midnight, just in case. Dan finds Lamech at a grocery store and goes inside his body. This is a great scene. Now possessing Lamech's body, Dan goes to Lucifer, makes Lucifer recognize him. Lucifer tells Dan about his upcoming disappearance and tells Dan to spend their last days with their loved ones. Dan, still posing as Lamech, finds Trixie, and she tells him that she is proud of her father. Trixie then leaves. Dan then sees a light in the sky and he enters heaven, leaving Lamech's body. Lucifer has an emotional goodbye with Amenadiel, who Lucifer recommends to become God, and Maze, who is leaving for her honeymoon with Eve. Lucifer, Chloe, and Rory go on a last family vacation before Rory leaves. Lucifer and Chloe come back and lock themselves in the panic room until midnight. Lucifer makes it through the day, but Lamech calls Lucifer saying that he has captured Rory at the same street where Rory said that Lucifer disappears. The only thing I'm going to say is, and we haven't talked a tremendous amount about Dan through this because Dan this whole season is Dan trying to figure out why am I in hell and how do I get out of hell and what is the unresolved guilt that's keeping me down here. And when I know some of you are going to react differently to this, but I'm going to say it anyway. Dan talking to his daughter about wanting her to be proud of him and him struggling with the guilt of the decisions that he's made as an officer really resonated with me. You want your children to be proud of you. You want your children to respect you, obviously. And if nothing else, him talking to his daughter that way and the daughter in turn telling him, Dad, I am proud of you. Doesn't know his dad, but I've always been proud of my father. And I will always love him. And that is how he ascends to heaven is amazing. Just like, this is what, you and I were chatting, Andrew, as I was watching this. And I was like, see, this is some of the best stuff in the show. And this is where we start to see everyone, we talked at the beginning of the podcast about how they just sometimes people don't land where you expect them to land in a show. And it kind of ruins the ending for you. The wrong person becomes king. Someone becomes a lumberjack. Who the fuck knows? A scene abruptly ends for no good reason. Things like that. And here, the strength of the Lucifer series towards the end is how well everyone got exactly where they should have been when it was all over, starting with Dan. Dan's season-long arc of trying to get to heaven and him resolving things with his daughter was absolutely excellent, Andrew.
Absolutely. That was a super strong scene. I really liked, and that one was kind of interesting because, again, they played the James Gunn trick where they kind of started out with something silly of him taking over the guy's body and having the scene with the cashier and things like that, and then going to go see Trixie. And they do that. And Kevin Alejandro actually directed this, and he directed that scene. I can't imagine how hard that was trying to dial in your performance from both sides of the camera.
Sure.
But when they do that shot where they kind of reverse across and then it goes from Lamech back to Dan, and I'm using the screen as a trick there, and then it just has this really, really genuine, emotional, heartfelt scene. I'm trying to make Mark cry more, by the way, kind of.
I'm not crying. You're crying.
Something in my eye.
Moment of
It's
catharsis.
very dusty in my house. Thank you very much, and I'll thank you not to stare. Go on.
Just this great moment of catharsis with his daughter before realizing that's kind of the source of his guilt. And I'm not gonna lie, I was a little surprised by what they chose to be the source of his guilt. I thought he was just going to. His guilt was simply from dying. Because I think part of it goes to, I have never thought of Dan as that bad of a character, or I think one who berates himself as much as he has, because as much as he's made mistakes, he's never done them for, I think, selfish intent either.
No, he wasn't on the take. You know.
Yeah, exactly.
He made not great decisions.
Exactly, and I think it was an interesting way of addressing that guilt and taking it forward. And I just got to comment on this really quick. The actress who plays Trixie, Scarlett Estevez, she has been one of the MVPs of this series. Because let's just face it, kids on TV and kids on movie can be really, really hit or miss. But she is really kind of, she's grown as as an actor and things like that as she's gone on in this series, and she's remained this really good presence and had these really good relationships with all the rest of the cast the entire time. So that was a fantastic scene for both of them.
Yeah, it really was excellent. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about with this this bit here? Anything about like Lucifer and the vacation and all that? The never-ending scene of him in the panic room with Chloe? Any of that?
I enjoyed the rest of it. I think it was this interesting kind of mix of Lucifer trying to get away from his fate, but also accepting his fate at the same time.
Sure.
And I think that kind of turns into a lot of the theme of the rest of the series, or the last couple episodes here is the question of fate. I thought all the scenes with them going to the beach day was fun. Damn it, I now want to go get a convertible and go drive the PCH.
We in Pensacola this past weekend, there was a Corvette show, and I told my wife when the kids go off to college or whatever it is they're going to do, and we're retired and we move to a beach town wherever that may be, totally getting a convertible Corvette. So Alexis, we also had a tearful goodbye with Maze here. We have Amenadiel who's going to ascend to heaven and be God, and after this long run of their contentious relationship, Amenadiel and Lucifer make peace, and Amenadiel goes to do what he's been meant to do, which is go be God. And then a very contentious relationship. You have Lucifer's goodbye with Maze. What'd you think of all that?
Well, first of all, I love the dialogue that Amenadiel has and his ideas about becoming God. I love the idea that he says he's going to work with his fellow angels. He says that one of their father's biggest, not mistakes, but one of the things he's never liked was that his dad was so standoffish. And he's like, no, I want input. And then he says, I got an even better idea. Let's have the angels spend some time out on Earth and have them walk amongst the humans like we did and get a better idea. And then when he gets co-signed into a co-owner as Lux, and he says, in fact, we're going to have them work here, bartenders and bouncers and everything. And yeah, it's like, that is such a great idea. And I love that. And I love how even Lucifer's like, wow, you're already coming up with some amazing ideas. Excellent work. And I love the scene between them when he says, tell our brothers and sisters, you have my blessing to be God. There's no joking about on it. There's no, well, if you go take my job. No, Lucifer is so serious. And he says, I give you my blessing to take over this position. Because we all knew Amenadiel was going to get the job. I mean, I'm sorry. We knew that Lucifer was not going to ascend as God. We knew that Amenadiel was going to get the position.
Sure.
I also got to say, I now understand why they cast Rob Benedict as Vincent LeMec. I brought this up in the last review we did when they brought in LeMec. Rob Benedict is a comedic actor who's been in a handful of things. Mark, we saw him in Birds of Prey from eons ago when we reviewed that. And he also played a prophet who was later revealed to be God himself in Supernatural. But he's always been a very silly comedic style actor. And when I saw him in the end of season 5 brought in as a French assassin, this cold-blooded killer, I'm like, what the hell is Rob Benedict doing in this role? But watching this episode, I am convinced they cast him because they knew that this was what they were going to do. Because when Dan takes over his body and he drops the French accent, Rob Benedict, for the record, was actually born in Columbia, Missouri. So he is not French.
That was very apparent from the accent.
Obviously. But yeah, I know his accent is terrible. Hell, I thought they were gonna, but yeah, the way he takes over and the way he acts towards the cashier and Trixie, even that little scene where Trixie's grilling, I was like, what's my favorite game? What do I want to be when I'm president? What's my favorite meal? He does that so well, and I'm just like, this is why you cast Rob Benedict as the role, because you knew you were going to need this scene.
Just that camera thing there. They swung the camera again, and he goes from being Lamech to back to Dan again.
That is a great take. I've seen that done in a couple of other movies, and it is really well done. They even did a good job, I think, blending their voices, because I mean, they start and like Lamech ends one sentence, and then Dan picks up the other one. But the way they're talking, it's not terribly abrupt. It's done very well. Now, Dan gets the most emotional scenes in this whole season. I can't believe we actually didn't talk about the scene a few episodes ago where he gets to say goodbye to Chloe. I was crying so hard during that scene when time runs out and he disappears and Chloe doesn't realize he's still in the kitchen. And she's like, if you're still there, if you can hear me, and he can't do anything. I was bawling. It was so touching. And yeah, the scene where he essentially makes peace with his daughter, so to speak. And he finds out that his greatest regret, his guilt, was feeling that he didn't do that good of a job as a father. And to have Trixie say, my dad was the greatest father in the world, and everything that is good about me came from him, was so touching. You know, it was a really great scene.
What was that?
I said, goddamn, you're gonna get me going now.
This is all go cameras off, and there'll be Dave going.
It's like, yeah, turn the cameras off, and all of a sudden it's like we're all leaving the theater after watching Coco.
Then there'll be Dave going, my thoughts on Star Trek.
It's that, or would you like to
just does me in like nobody's business.
Well, do you want Star Trek, or do you want the history of the Tang Dynasty?
I want Lucifer. Go.
Okay. Well, if you guys want to cry, I'll do the Amazon Music. Well,
if you are going to cry, you can download "Don't Cry Out Loud" on Amazon. Fuck, you set me up. I'm just going with it now. On AmazonMusic.com, of which we've got a link in the description of the podcast. Get AmazonMusic.com /W2M network for a free 30-day trial of the Amazon Unlimited service. All right, go ahead, David.
Okay, yeah, I think most of the ground has been covered. One thing I will add is the way that they did the light of heaven coming to Dan was really well done. Just subtly bringing it in, like, you know, you don't even perceive it, and then you're like, oh wait, you know, it's getting brighter. Right? You're like, oh, this is it. You know, this is the moment.
Yeah, at first you probably just think like there's like a lighting change, or like the lights are coming on in the park or something, and then all of a sudden you realize, no, wait, that's something else.
Yeah, it's very, you're the lobster in the pot as they turn the heat up on you. You know, you don't notice it until it's too late, sort of thing. But
wow, how did you take the light of heaven to being boiled alive in a pot?
It's subtle.
I would have been more like, shit, did J.J. Abrams show up and start lighting the scene?
It wasn't that bad. I can still tell what's going on.
Hang on, god damn it.
I was going to ask you to play that if you did.
Okay, maybe I went a little too hard on that analogy, but yeah. But then, of course, you go from the, you know, Dan has ascended into heaven, and you're like, oh, shit. We're back to Lamech, and he's standing right next to his daughter.
I was so afraid for that child. Like,
I know, right?
When you forget you're watching a fiction and suddenly you're like, oh, what's going to happen? You know, that poor child. And like, thankfully, nothing.
Like I was kind of expecting it would be Trixie would have been the one to be kidnapped at the end, and that's why Lucifer has to go to save Trixie, and that explains everything.
That wicked smile on his face is certainly what they were alluding to. And I'm like, no, not Trixie, anyone but Trixie. And then they still, you know, knifey wings. So
let's face it, the show would have ended a lot better if it was Trixie who had been kidnapped, not Rory.
I don't agree with that. Because of what Rory has to do in that scene, you need Rory to be there.
Yeah. Though speaking of Rory, just before I forget this point, like the bit where Chloe's just going crazy after she discovers that Rory has knife wings, and she thinks it's some sort of manifestation of her her abandonment issues and feeling, weak and defenseless. So she manifests knife wings. And then she's telling Amenadiel, and he's just like, she's got knife wings? That is so cool.
Yeah, like I said, fan fiction.
That is such a parent thing, though.
The show gets a little X-Men-y at times, they all start having superpowers and whatnot, and hers is she's fucking Archangel from from Inferno or some shit.
Yeah,
and
I was expecting someone to ask, can you shoot them?
I was gonna say she's also apparently Kitty Pryde from Days of Future Past.
She's all the X-Men. She's all the Jedi. Please move. Stop me, Andrew.
Okay, I'll jump in for 1 second on one point on what Dave said there. That is actually when that scene happened where Chloe's like trying to figure out if that's a projection of abandonment issues. That is such a parent's thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
because it's like when either one of my kids does something negative, and I can immediately see that it's a personality trait that they share with me. I'm like, oh shit, poor children.
My son has been arguing with his teacher of late, and my wife, every time that this happens, and she tells me the story, looks at me and goes, "You did this. He is you." And I said, "I know."
Yeah. This is why I worry if Andre and I ever, this is why I worry if Andre and I ever have kids, because it's going to be like, you realize that we're going to create the most stubborn pain in the ass human beings on the planet.
It's the parental curse.
Yeah.
Someday you will have a child just like you.
And the Cosby's line, the mother's curse is your children will have brain damage just like you did. Something along those lines. All right.
I was thinking more about Robin Williams talking about how his parents are up in heaven laughing their asses off at him dealing with his kids.
Partners till the end. After finding out that Lamech has Rory captured, Lucifer decides to go save her like you would, with Chloe tagging along because all fucking season long they've been arguing about lying and keeping secrets and not being partners and being partners, and finally we have to resolve this stupid plot point. So she goes. When Lucifer and Chloe reach the location, Chloe gets stabbed as per usual, but she manages to survive. Lucifer asks Lamech to shoot him, but Rory breaks free and almost kills Lamech, with her devil face almost taking over her real face. But Lucifer convinces her not to kill him. Chloe arrives and shoots Lamech. Seconds before his death, Lamech reveals to Lucifer that Dan made it to heaven. After telling Chloe and Rory this news, Rory realizes that he left to redeem all the lost souls in hell. Rory makes Lucifer promise to keep things the way they will be in the future. Lucifer and Chloe have an emotional goodbye before Lucifer sets off for hell. After a while, it is shown that everyone is happy, with Dan and Charlotte reunited in heaven, which was awesome, by the way. 20 years later, Chloe has an emotional goodbye with Rory before dying and goes to heaven. Amenadiel, who is now the new god, takes Chloe to hell and reunites her with Lucifer, who is now a therapist redeeming lost souls in the replica of Linda's office in hell. So two things, and then I'll let you guys finish up and we'll get out of here. The show's photography can be a little flat at times. This was a Fox show originally. This is not exactly the Russo brothers shooting high art here. I say that because in contrast, the kiss on the throne of hell is just magic. It's wonderfully shot. They really, they knew what they were doing with that scene, and they were like, if we've shot anything with any kind of competence, we need to really hit this one out of the park. And I think it was very successful. The camera's swinging around the throne, and it goes from where they are to the throne, and they're having a very romantic, magical goodbye kiss, and it's. I kind of have my daughter's reaction to on-screen romance, where it's just like, oh, get the fuck on with it already. And here I was like, nope, this was earned. This was absolutely earned, and it was great to watch, and and good for them. We talked about this with Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So the shield, just kidding, Alexis. I swear to God, just kidding.
Bingo.
There it is. What reaction I was looking for. We talked about with Falcon and the Winter Soldier, a big thing for me, theme-wise, is redemption and forgiveness and wanting to do better and all of that. And Lucifer, and as I said a few minutes ago on the podcast, a big thing that the show deals with is, one's purpose, and is it preordained, or is it something that you can create? And Lucifer suddenly realizing that hell is all fucked up, and what it needs is a healer. He needs to help people ascend to heaven, not trap them there forever, torturing them and punishing them for the sins that they did. And that's brilliant. Lucifer, after 6 seasons trying to figure out what he wants to be when he grows up, was really magical for me. That touched me, that resonated with me, and it made some of the low points of this show where I was rolling my eyes and playing with my phone on TikTok. Just more. It was well worth the ride, Alexis. It was well worth the ride, and like I said, seeing Dan with Charlotte made my heart swell. Seeing Chloe and Lucifer reunited in hell after all this time, seeing Rory, who started as such a shitty character, come to the realization that her father was doing the right thing and finding love for him. All of this stuff, it was like, wow, everything is exactly where it needed to be for this to be a successful series finale. So way to go, Hollywood. Way to go. Your thoughts on this final episode and whatever else you want to say before we close out.
I agree. Like I mentioned earlier, I really love that they gave a decent epilogue to so many of the characters. We forgot to mention in the previous episode that Lucifer sets up the foundation.
Yeah.
Ella's name for STEM, which was awesome, and I love that she continues that. She's still with Carol. They're doing things like that. That's great. I love that they see that Chloe's made lieutenant, that Officer Harris has gone on to become a detective. Anyone else kind of just lose it during the scene when Charlie's angel wings show up and you see Linda and Amenethel's reaction, and they're like, yes. It was awesome. I love it and Linda's still just too shocked to do anything about it.
Can I get the bubble wrap out?
You get to see where Chloe comes home with baby Rory, and Maze and Eve are there, and they gift her very first knife. I love that.
Here, you can have Stabby.
No, it's a little minor thing, but it really made me happy to see that one of the patients, so to speak, that Lucifer's working with in hell is Lamech. We have three people down there. One is a girl we've never seen before. The other one is Reese, who I think was in. Hang on a second. I think it was in season 3. Yeah, we saw his hell loop, and Lucifer's helping him, and Lamech's there. And I love the line. It's like, it's like, if it doesn't work, you can shoot him in the face. And Lucifer's like, no shooting in the face. We clearly need to work with you a little bit more. But still, that's really good.
I like it when he ordered him French pastries. Merci.
Yeah, that was great. It's like, there's the donuts. I got you pastries. Even the fact that he created his office to look like Linda's office was so touching. The idea that that's where he feels the comfort and where he knows he can find his strength. Really like that. I just really hope that when Chloe showed up, he kicked all those souls out before they turned on the in-session light.
Nope, they made him watch. Orange style.
I still got to torture you somehow.
Anything else, Alexis, before we close up for the night?
Again, this is not my favorite season of the series. There were a lot of flaws. There were a lot of parts where it's clear that the writers wanted to bring in some elements that hadn't been touched on before that they really should have done prior. There's a lot of things that they didn't know what to do with. I mentioned before the whole thing with the corruption and we get a little bit of a cleanup with that when we see that Chloe's now lieutenant and Harris is the detective. So we have to assume that Chloe has gone in and helped clean up the precinct. But again, it's not really talked about. It's not really looked at. And yeah, that's kind of annoying. But it was still a really, really good finale, and I did enjoy it.
Great. Andrew, wrap it up.
Solid finale. I mean, I think we talked about it a little bit. We made allusions to where series tripped, but this one really did nail it in terms of wrapping up all the various arcs of the characters. I think in terms of, kind of favorite moments, I think that conversation between Chloe, Lucifer, and Rory kind of talking about the fact that this is both your purpose, but it's also your choice as well. And bringing together those elements of the show and those character arcs and, Lucifer accepting this is what he needs to do works really well. And then I think the follow-on kind of montage where you find out what happens in the meantime, which, if I remember, it was such a Radiohead song. Am I right on that one?
It was a cover of Champagne Supernova.
Yeah, which one of my other favorite songs in this entire series was Lucifer's cover of Creep. So I thought that was kind of a nice touch. And again, you get to roll through kind of everyone's epilogues. Dan's epilogue, The Wings were great. And then, just have the reunion at the end, and you get to see Lucifer, trying to help people recover. And I'm kind of surprised they didn't call back to this, because on some level, that's kind of his named intent. Samael is his original name was Lightbringer. As his morning starts, both allusions to bringing light. So I'm kind of surprised they didn't touch on that one a little bit more. And I mean, even Lucifer puts the button on the series. It's like, well, if the devil himself can be redeemed, then so can you.
Sure.
But no, I've really enjoyed this show. I think on some level it has been greater than some of its parts a lot of the time. Really great cast, really great chemistry. I'd say a lot of the dialogue has always worked very well. I don't know the next time I'll revisit it, but certainly a really well-earned ride.
All right, David, take me home, baby doll.
Yeah, I'm glad this was the last season. I think they've used their premise to the max. We've gone through every celestial drama that we can reasonably hope to go through. So this was the time. Wrap it up, finish strong. Don't stretch it out.
Season 7, they bring in Lot, and he's doing a sex child trafficking ring or some shit.
Yeah. So we've gone far enough with it. We've done Lucifer's dad, Lucifer's mom, Lucifer's evil twin brother, Lucifer's daughter from the future. It's kind of like we're out of those, and I am worried over how many seasons Cobra Kai is getting at this moment. It's just like, I'm not really sure there's another 3 seasons of good story left in that show. Great show, but there's only so much you can stretch a premise, but that's for another podcast. So it was good. I mean, like Tom Ellis, just fantastic job playing Lucifer. He's right up there with sort of Dudley Moore as far as like devils that, if the devil were real, I kind of wish, that would be the devil you meet.
Yeah, it was kind of the part he was born to play. I'll be curious to see what he does next.
Yeah, well, just brief shout out, from my own readings of the Bible, the devil's not really in it that much. Christians really seem to make a big deal out of the devil, where he's not really that big of a deal. He's not this evil, malignant force. I mean, he makes a bit of trouble, but it's like he's a tempter. It's his job to kind of
people love a villain.
Yeah,
trickster.
Yeah, he's a trickster, not so much as this malevolent force to cause evil. But anyway, we're getting a little off track there. But I thought, again, with how heavy the all cops are bastards thing that they added in, it was a bit, the level of setup that was given for that versus the level of payoff, I thought it just didn't really match up. Yeah, and that was definitely a stumbling point where it just didn't work for how little time it was given as a thing. That is we're starting another 5-season arc on, cleaning up the police. Well, that's basically an entire show. Just cleaning up a police department. But
it's like Law and Order SVU already did this.
Yeah, that kind of thing. So that was kind of a little bit of they didn't do much, but everyone kind of ended up in a good place and all working. I thought the set for the throne room in heaven was pretty tacky. It didn't look that.
It was cool to see the Silver City finally, though.
Oh yeah. The external shot of the Silver City was fantastic. That is a cool depiction of heaven. But when you actually get into the actual throne room, it's like this. It kind of looks cheap, guys.
It looks like I was gonna say. It looks like something from the Never-Ending Story.
I kind of wish they hadn't showed it, actually.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I like what they did with sort of Amenadiel ascending the throne, and then once everyone kneels and then they stand up, the throne's gone. Sort of his. We are now celestial equals, basically.
Yeah, Knights of the Round Table.
There's one other shot that bugged me during that sequence.
Go for it.
When Amenadiel reaches out to take Chloe's hand to take her down, you can obviously see that the inside of his bracer is Velcro.
Okay, fair enough. Velcro is awesome.
I'm like, oh, that doesn't. You could put
God likes Velcro.
Yeah, but when it's supposed to be armor, I have a band brace in the other room, and it's like, no, that doesn't work that way.
Yeah, fair enough. The goodbye for Rory in the past, I was actually quite surprised they showed her dematerializing. I was expecting just off camera, bright light. and they did a decent job of the emotional, baggage or lifting of that scene. That was, it worked pretty good. Yeah, like it's a very unique show, taking like a police buddy cop procedural and it's like, oh, and the other one's the devil, and there's also all the celestial stuff going on. So
hilarity ensues.
Yeah, points for originality and creativity, and for the most part pulling it off. So yeah, I'm glad I watched it. We enjoyed it. Yeah, I'm not sure if it's a show I will constantly revisit, but yeah, it was. If you're looking for something to pass the time, it's a good watch.
All right. Just real quick plugs because we are at the 2-hour mark, a little past it. So just going to wrap this up. Myself, speaking of 2-hour podcast, myself, Pat Mullen, and Chris Bailey today did our Mania of WrestleMania 6 and 7. That's up now. Myself and what's his face? Robert Winfrey. We did a triple feature, 3 Westerns, Cry Macho, Hell or High Water, and Concrete Cowboy. And we kicked off the week with a re-airing of The Magnificent Seven from a few years ago, plus a review of Andrew WK's God. Speaking of which, God is Partying, which Andrew WK retweeted, much to my shock and fear, given what I said on that particular review. But thanks, Andrew WK. And Kat Dennings, I'm still waiting for you to answer my tweet. I need to know things. Anyway, tomorrow, Andrew, hey, we're talking about Thomas Hearns tomorrow. I know you enjoy our boxing podcast. So
are excellent.
Yeah, Thomas Hearns is tomorrow. That's chapter 4. And then we start getting into the fights next month and into next year. So check out Pat and I talking about the history of the 4 kings of boxing, Thomas Hearns, Sugar Ray Leonard, Marvin Hagler, and Roberto Duran, who punched out a horse. And speaking of punching out a horse, myself and Chris Bailey, in theory, will be reviewing this past night's episode of AEW Dynamite Grand Slam, which took place at the former Met Stadium, which is now called Arthur Ashe. All right, Alexis Hejna, you sell jewelry to the masses. What's the name of your company and where can they find you?
Honeysuckle Rose Creations, where fashion meets fandom at the intersection of geek and chic. Like Mark mentioned at the beginning of this podcast, and if you've listened to this entire thing, kudos. I just wrapped up my final Comic-Con of the season at Cincinnati Comic Expo. It was a wonderful show. We're always happy to be out there. We might be doing some minor little one-day shows here over the next month or so. We actually don't have anything on the schedule. So for now, the best way to find us is through our Etsy and Handmade at Amazon shops. We're currently restocking a bunch of items, and I'm working on getting a bunch of new stuff. We want to have a ton of brand new products in time for the Black Friday sale. It's not even October yet, and I got to think about Black Friday. Shoot me now. And as always, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Also, plug-wise, I should add that we're still working on getting our next episode of Tripped Up Trivia recorded. We're going to be discussing... Mark, what was that?
That was me going, yes, talk about that.
I just saw this, and it was just like, what, were you swiping?
Karate chopping.
That's my bet.
We will hopefully be recording that soon. Between my travels and my co-host Jesse Starcher having a few things he had to take care of, we haven't talked about it in a while. I should probably reach out to him here pretty soon. Are you nodding or head banging?
Both. Talk to Jesse Starcher immediately. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, that's not getting out of my head. Okay, yes, hopefully we will have that recorded soon. So, Tripped Up Trivia, Horror Edition. I think we have enough contestants, but if you are interested in playing, if you are a big Halloween nut and horror movie aficionado like I am, reach out to the Radulich and Broadcasting Network on either Facebook or Twitter. Let us know if you'd like to play. And again, Honeysuckle Rose Creations, the intersection of geek and chic. Find us on Etsy and Handmade at Amazon.
All right, Andrew, I hear you roll around on mats with sweaty men. Where do you do this at?
Haven't heard the phrase that way in a while, but I do train at Esteem and Havoc Martial Arts. esteemandhavoc.com. They're located in Calgary, Alberta here, and are open with health restrictions in place. New schedule has just been put up on the Facebook page. They're available through Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all your major platforms. other thing to plug is I mentioned a little bit earlier, but one of the instructors there, Jay Cooper, does have a podcast himself called Bang of the Hound, where he does talk to a number of different figures within the martial arts community. Those are really interesting podcasts if you're definitely into that thing. And otherwise, we hope to see you out there, guys. Thank you very much.
All right,
Oh,
David.
forgot. Sorry. Next podcast will be me and Mark, Veterans/Remembrance Day, Band of Brothers.
Yes, that is correct. All right, David, is there anything you want to plug real quick? If not, we're going to call it a night.
Yeah, just very quickly. So I guess I'm back next month for All Things Dune.
Yeah, buddy.
So I'll be making, I believe, my on-trial debut prosecuting the David Lynch Dune movie. And then following that, I'll be on the Damn You Hollywood talking about the new Denis Villeneuve Dune. Other than that, probably be on for most things Marvel, and we'll see how it goes from there. Of course, Star Trek retrospective coming November, probably.
Yes, when around the week that Discovery is season 4, 5, 12 is debuting. Whichever
so
one
if you're looking for some good Star Trek content at that time.
All right, folks. Thanks for hanging out with us for as long as we've run this thing. For Andrew Graham, David Wright, and Alexis Hejna, I'm Mark Radulich. Be well, be safe, and behave.